Hi and welcome to Oshunyomi's channel. So today we are going to do Yahweh Ben Yahweh. So as you know, I always do the story at the end and then I go and I look through what they said on him or whatever the people is, and then I take it from there. So Ben Yahweh was definitely a very manipulative, dangerous man all in one body. Right, let me see if I can find the beginning of this. Right. Yeah, so I'm going to play his story first. And as you know, like I normally do, I play the story and then we go through the articles to find out where they are, what they're doing, all that stuff. So I'm going to start playing the story of Ben Yahweh Ben Yahweh.
Yahweh Ben Yahweh was born Hewlin Mitchell Jr. on October 27, 1935, in Kingfisher, Oklahoma. He was the first of 15 children who were born to Hewlin Mitchell Sr., who was a granary worker and the minister of the Antioch Church of God in Christ in Enid, Oklahoma. His mother was Pearl Mitchell, and she was a pianist for the same church for many years. At the age of 3, Hewlin Mitchell Jr. believed he was divine and that he was meant to be a leader. Eventually, Hewlin Mitchell Jr. left home in Oklahoma to join the military and later earn an economics degree. And although Hewlin attended law school, he never technically got a degree. In the 1960s, Hewlin moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where he joined the Nation of Islam and took on the new name Hewlin X. The Nation of Islam's goal, according to their own website, is to, quote, restore and to resurrect his, meaning God's, lost and found people, who were identified as the original members of the tribe of Shabazz from the lost nation of Asia. The lost people of the original nation of African descent were captured, exploited, and dehumanized to serve as servitude slaves of America for over 3 centuries. His mission was to teach the downtrodden and defenseless Black people a thorough knowledge of God and of themselves, and to put them on the road to self-discipline, with a superior culture and higher civilization than they had previously experienced. End quote. The website also provides a brief history of this religion and their mission, and the overall structure of the Nation of Islam, saying, quote, the Nation of Islam was founded on the basis of peace, and as an answer to a prayer of Abraham, to deliver his people who would be found in servitude slavery in the Western Hemisphere in this day and time. The flag of Islam with the symbols of the sun, moon, and the stars represent the universe and is also a banner of universal peace and harmony. Our holy temples of Islam were established in America as sanctuaries of peace and higher learning into the knowledge of the oneness of God. Our schools are called universities of Islam and teach the higher meaning of Islam, which is mathematics. We have always been taught to respect the laws of the land. We are taught never to carry arms, to make war, or to be the aggressor, for this is against the nature of the righteous. We are taught the principles of divine unity and the universal brotherhood of Islam. End quote. I do want to say that although this is what is published on their website, there are other institutions and religious organizations that feel the Nation of Islam is not this peaceful and harmonious religion that they portray themselves to be. According to the Southern Poverty Law Center, quote, since its founding in 1930, the Nation of Islam, NOI, has grown into one of the wealthiest and best-known organizations in Black America. Its theology of innate Black superiority over whites and the deeply racist, anti-Semitic, and anti-LGBT rhetoric of its leaders have earned the NOI a prominent position in the ranks of organized hate. End quote. After leaving the Nation of Islam in the late 60s, Hewlin Mitchell Jr. became a faith-healing Christian preacher, and he named himself Father Mitchell. Over the course of 4 decades, Hewlin Mitchell would adopt different religious beliefs and different names for himself, like Hula Shaw, Father Michel, and Brother Love. He lived through segregation, served in the Air Force, and earned a psychology degree from Phillips College in Oklahoma, which was an all-black school back then. Some teachers at the college even considered Hewlin to be brilliant. He went on to work with civil rights organizations and even participate in sit-ins in Oklahoma, but it seems he quickly became disillusioned by the movement and rhetoric of one of the most influential figures in the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King Jr. He once called MLK, quote, "that dead dog preacher," end quote. By 1978, Hewlin Mitchell Jr. was now residing in Miami, Florida. This is the city where he ultimately would gather members of the city's Black Hebrew Israelite congregations and found a religious organization of his own, called the Nation of Yahweh. In 1979, Mitchell officially planted his headquarters for Nation of Yahweh in Liberty City, Florida, a neighborhood in Miami. This neighborhood of Liberty City is home to one of the largest concentrations of Black people in South Florida. In the 1940s and 50s, Liberty City was known as a thriving middle-income Black American community. This city hosted several churches, hospitals, and community centers, and despite the segregation laws in place at the time, the city welcomed and hosted prominent Black figures such as MLK and Muhammad Ali in service establishments like resorts and hotels. The once thriving community turned poverty and crime-stricken soon after the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Lower-income families were forced into Liberty City after the displacement from the inner-city neighborhoods. By the 1970s, the problems of the poor and disenfranchised grew apparent in race riots and increasing crime rates. One particular race riot occurred after the acquittal of police officers who were charged in the killing of Arthur McDuffie, a Black insurance salesman who was beaten to death by 4 police officers after a traffic stop. Clearly, the racial and socioeconomic climate of Liberty City and the surrounding area was just right for Hewlin Mitchell Jr., a man who capitalized on the distrust and violent history between Blacks and whites in America. Before making it to Miami, Mitchell preached his Black nationalistic beliefs. However, they didn't really land far, meaning he didn't garner much of a following. But that all changed after the killing of Arthur McDuffie and the acquittal of those 4 police officers in 1979. Mitchell now had the attention of a bubbling city. The people just needed a leader who was bold enough to lead the charge. When he created the Nation of Yahweh, Hewlin Mitchell Jr. legally changed his name to Yahweh Ben Yahweh. In Hebrew, this name translates to the Lord Son of the Lord. Yahweh Ben Yahweh was now proclaiming to be the Son of God, and within 2 years of creating the Nation of Yahweh, he attracted thousands of followers in Miami with a timely message for the grieving Black citizens of the city, that God, not Jesus, is Black, and that Blacks are God's chosen people. His followers were called the Yahwehs, and were given the last name Israel. As part of the Nation of Yahweh, they were expected to wear white clothing, like their leader. With a growing congregation, he and his followers were boasting of building a $100 million real estate portfolio. They had planned to do this by transforming damaged and struggling neighborhoods in Liberty City into landscaped, thriving oases. All of this sounded appealing to his followers. After all, Liberty City had taken a downturn since its Black middle-class utopia in the 1940s and the 1950s. If Yahweh Ben Yahweh was the Son of God, who's to say he couldn't make this miracle happen for citizens of Liberty City? And if he could do it here, imagine where else he could transform. Over the years, the Nation of Yahweh grew bigger, and so did their reach. They had a massive temple, called the Temple of Love, to worship in, a 4-story apartment building, restaurants, stores, houses, and even hotels in Miami and Atlanta. To keep in theme with their white attire, Nation of Yahweh members owned white cars, vans, buses, and 18-wheeler trucks. As I was researching this case, I couldn't help but make connections between the Nation of Yahweh and the Church of Scientology. It struck me that the Nation of Yahweh's reach resembles the Church of Scientology in an eerie way, from the outfits to the many businesses, means of transportation, and real estate properties that they acquired. From the outside looking in, the Nation of Yahweh was prospering, and Yahweh Ben Yahweh was leading his people to a promised land that guaranteed equality, peace, and communion with God. But underneath the shiny, glamorous surface, rumors were floating to the top, and it wouldn't be long before they exposed a dark and violent truth inside the Nation of Yahweh. By the late 1980s, local politicians were flocking toward the Temple of Love. They wanted to contribute to and hopefully gain support from the Nation of Yahweh followers. In 1990, the mayor at the time named Xavier Suarez even went to the lengths of proclaiming a Yahweh Ben Yahweh day. But the upswing of Yahweh Ben Yahweh's life was headed toward a major downswing when rumors of violence within the nation of Yahweh were finally being taken seriously by local law enforcement. According to the Miami Herald, back in 1981, the Metro-Dade police had suspected that the Yahwehs had beheaded dissident Aston Green, shot to death his friend, accountant Carlton Carey, and severely injured Carlton's girlfriend, Mildred Banks, who survived gunshots and machete blows to her neck. Those weren't the only crimes that the Yahwehs had been suspected of committing. In 1986, Delray Beach police suspected the Yahwehs of firebombing a Delray Beach neighborhood. According to the Miami Herald, 5 months later, 2 tenants were gunned down during a Yahweh takeover of an apartment complex in Opa-locka, Florida. Apparently, police had found a man hiding near the murder scene, and it was his story that cracked the case for investigators. The man at the murder scene was named Robert Rosier, and he was a former pro football player who claimed to be more than 400 years old. And on top of all of this, there was even alleged reports of suspected child abuse within the Nation of Yahweh. By November 1986, the once prosperous religious organization began crumbling thanks to the arrest of Robert Rosier. He was arrested in the connection of 2 killings that were associated with the Nation of Yahweh. Yahweh Ben Yahweh's trial would come 4 years later in 1990. He and about a dozen of his followers were indicted on 2 charges of racketeering. I had a general understanding of racketeering, but I wanted to research all that a racketeering charge could entail. So, racketeering is the act of acquiring business through illegal activity, operating a business with illegally derived income, or using a business to commit illegal acts. Generally, federal crimes of racketeering include bribery, gambling offenses, money laundering, obstructing justice or criminal investigation, murder for hire, and sexual exploitation of children. At the state level, racketeering includes crimes such as murder, kidnapping, gambling, arson, robberies. However, they were never allowed to leave the courtroom because state prosecutors immediately arrested them on first-degree murder charges. On top of this, 2 more defendants who were acquitted of racketeering charges were arrested on state murder charges, and these 2 men were James Lewis Mack and Dexter Leon. After the verdicts were read, the disciples of the Nation of Yahweh were reported to have walked by and kissed their leader or shook his hand. It was clear that Yahweh Ben Yahweh's followers had no plans of abandoning their leader. If anything, this was just proof of his divinity. After all, he had been tried and persecuted by the public. Yahweh Ben Yahweh and about a dozen of his followers were accused of numerous crimes. These are the crimes for which they were accused. November 11, 1981. Directed attempted murder of former follower Eric Burke at his Liberty City home. November 12, 1981. Decapitation of former member Aston Green in Dade County. November 15, 1981. Attempted killing of former member Mildred Banks by shooting her and slashing her throat, and shooting death of Carlton Carey at Temple of Love in Miami. September 1983. Beating death of former member Leonard Dupree at Temple of Love. April 19, 1986. Stabbing deaths of Glendale Fowler and Kurt Dewar at their Coconut Grove home. May 20, 1986. Firebombing of homes on Southwest 14th Avenue in Delray Beach. May 22, 1986. Stabbing death of Claire Walters on Biscayne Boulevard, Miami. July 20, 1986. Stabbing death of James Lee Myers on Biscayne Boulevard. September 5, 1986. Fatal stabbing of Lyle Austin Bellinger in Miami. September 6, 1986. Stabbing death of Raymond Kelly in South Miami. September 21, 1986. Stabbing death of Cecil Branch at his Coconut Grove home. October 2, 1986. Fatal stabbing of Harry Byers at Legion Park, Miami. October 10, 1986. Stabbing death of Reynaldo Echevarria at 103rd Street and 32nd Avenue, Miami. October 30th, 1986. Shooting deaths of Anthony Brown and Rudolph Broussard at Opa-locka apartment complex where they lived. At the trial, Robert Rosier, the guy police found outside of the bombing site, gave testimony in exchange for a reduced sentence. During the testimony, Rosier claimed that 8 white vagrants were targeted by Yahweh Ben Yahweh for death as quote-unquote white devils. Yahweh Ben Yahweh's defense attorneys argued in court that Rosier was a liar and a psychopath who was ratting on the Yahwehs just to get a 22-year prison sentence instead of the electric chair. On the other side, the prosecution sought to prove that Yahweh Ben Yahweh sent a squad of quote-unquote death angels to kill a man named Cecil Branch in an act of religious retribution. The death of Cecil Branch was among the slew of other murder allegations against the nation of Yahweh. According to the Miami Herald, Cecil Branch had knocked down a female member of the Nation of Yahweh as she carried the Nation of Yahweh's religious message from the Temple of Love in Liberty City to the Coconut Grove home of Branch's mother. The prosecution claimed that Yahweh Ben Yahweh had ordered the murder of Cecil Branch about a week after Cecil confronted the Yahweh woman. Among Yahweh Ben Yahweh, the other co-defendants in this murder trial were Dexter Leon Grant, also known as Abiri Israel, James Lewis Mack, also known as Jesse Obed, and Ernest Lee James, also known as Ahinadad Israel. The prosecution informed the jury that Cecil Branch was brutally killed in the living room of his own rented home. He died from more than 24 stab wounds in his chest and abdomen, and according to reporting in the Miami Herald, that wasn't all of the damage he sustained before death. It is reported that Cecil Branch's ear was sliced off and removed from the scene of the crime. A big hole in the prosecution's case against Yahweh Ben Yahweh was that they did not have any physical evidence, such as fingerprints or an eyewitness identification, other than Robert Rozier's, to place any defendants at the home of Cecil Branch on the day of his murder. In court, the prosecution alleged that the killers of Cecil Branch took the ear back to Yahweh Ben Yahweh to prove that the death mission had been completed. The prosecution's case rested heavily on the shoulders of one man, Robert Rozier, who admitted to being among Branch's killers and who had turned on his alleged accomplices in attempts to receive a lighter sentence. However, the defense tried to discount Rozier's testimony, citing that the man had admitted to killing 7 men and was an ex-member of the Nation of Yahweh who couldn't be trusted to provide truthful information. One of the defense attorneys, Jane Weintraub, portrayed Rozier as a ruthless deceiver, saying in her closing arguments, quote, "I would hope they would dismiss the charges once and for all and put an end to Robert Rozier's lies. He is a violent, cold, and calculating man," end quote. Among Robert Rozier's testimony, the prosecution called on a dozen former followers of Yahweh Ben Yahweh, some of whom included his own sister and nephew. They both testified against him, saying they had once truly believed that Yahweh Ben Yahweh was the Son of God. During testimonies, they accused the religious leader of preaching racial hatred and violence, and that dissidents deserved death. According to the Miami Herald, the jury bought the testimony of the early followers who testified, like Yahweh Ben Yahweh's family members. However, the jury had a harder time believing the words of Robert Rozier. For about 5 days, the jurors were stuck. They were hung on so many issues, and I don't blame them. From my research, the ins and outs of this case are at times confusing and murky, between the defendants' names, the charges, and the numerous testimonies. Although the jury had once seemed hopelessly hung, they finally reached a verdict. In December 1992, Yahweh Ben Yahweh and those 3 members who were charged in the killing of Cecil Branch were acquitted. The jury was multi-ethnic and consisted of 12 members, and members of the jury insisted that religion and race in no way interfered with their decision-making. Dade prosecutors abandoned their efforts to press murder charges against Yahweh Ben Yahweh, who was already facing 18 years in prison for those federal racketeering charges. After the state dropped their charges, Yahweh Ben Yahweh, who was 57 at the time, told reporters, quote, "I'm absolutely elated," end quote. Despite still facing time for the racketeering charges, Yahweh Ben Yahweh felt that he was vindicated. According to the Miami Herald, Kevin DeGregory, a prosecutor who helped handle the case, declined to say why the pending charges were dropped against Yahweh and a co-defendant, Carl Perry. These men were charged with the murders of tenants Anthony Brown and Rudolph Broussard during the Nation of Yahweh's takeover of an Opelika apartment complex in 1986. But Jane Weintraub, Yahweh's attorney, said prosecutors had no choice. They would again be dependent on the testimony of Yahweh's main accuser, former follower Robert Rozier, whose credibility was rejected by jurors in the just-completed trial for the murder of Cecil Branch. Although the leader of Nation of Yahweh was facing 18 years in federal prison, this conviction did not stop the religious organization from moving forward. After Yahweh Ben Yahweh was sent to prison, the Temple of Love was abandoned, but Yahweh Ben Yahweh still claimed that he had thousands of followers all across the U.S. Ironically, the controversy surrounding the Nation of Yahweh actually propelled the organization further, helping them spread the word about their religion to more and more people. Thanks to the media, the nation of Yahweh was now being talked about on radio and television nationally, which wasn't the case before everything went down. But while member numbers were increasing, financial backing was decreasing. The nation of Yahweh faced many financial setbacks. Some followers stopped contributing, possibly from the fear of the government seizing the organization's assets. Members even stopped buying products that the sect sold, like books and shampoo. Because they lost money, they also lost nearly all of their real estate properties in Miami, including the Temple of Love, to foreclosures. However, they still held on to Yahweh University, located in Liberty City, as well as a hotel in downtown Atlanta. Uriah David Israel, who was the Nation of Yahweh's national ambassador, told reporters, quote, "We know that Yahweh Ben Yahweh, our brothers and sisters, are not guilty. But can you say the same of the American justice system?" End quote. When Israel was asked why he thought the nation of Yahweh was struggling financially, Israel said, quote, "I think it," meaning the trial, "frightened a lot of people away. Some of the things I read about us were shocking to me," end quote. And I think this statement is so interesting because I think it could be totally possible that some members, those who weren't in Yahweh Ben Yahweh's inner circle, could have been very well oblivious to all of the Take two. And I think this statement is so interesting because I think it could be totally possible that some members, those who weren't in Yahweh's Take three. And I think this statement is so interesting because I think it could be totally possible that some members, those who weren't in Yahweh Ben Yahweh's inner circle, could have very well been oblivious to any of the alleged violence and could have been truly shocked and in disbelief by the information that was revealed at trial. In 2001, Yahweh Ben Yahweh was released from prison on parole. However, his release came with many restrictions. He was prohibited from connecting with his old congregation. This meant that he was stopped from giving any form of speech via the internet, telephone, computer, radio, or television that could place him in contact with any Nation of Yahweh members. The Nation of Yahweh, although considered a religion by its members, is often considered a cult from outsiders. A cult is defined as a system of religious veneration and devotion directed toward a particular figure or object. And according to psychologist Steve Eichel, who is a recognized international cult expert and president of the International Cultic Studies Association, there are up to 10,000 cults that still exist in the US today. Of course, many of these are extremely small, as to deliberately keep them under the radar. So that's why we don't often know about them unless they are exposed for committing crimes. So what constitutes a cult? And was the Nation of Yahweh a cult or a religion? Well, I don't feel comfortable labeling the Nation of Yahweh as a cult or a religion because I have no education or experience regarding cults, although it does sound a bit culty. But here are some factors, according to Eichel, that can help determine if a religion is actually a cult. 1.
Okay, she's going places we don't need to go right now. All right, so as I said, I'm going to play his voice. I don't know.
Now, if we go around America,
Oops, keep pressing the wrong one. Okay.
and take a poll. Everybody came to America but you and me. Everybody came to America but our people. We're the only people in America brought here against our will, in chains, in bondage. We were brought here in bondage. We were not brought here and then reduced to slavery. We were brought here in chains and sold in America in slavery from 1555. Hallelujah, Yahweh. So we were brought here, and the knowledge of our God and our history and culture and language and names was all stolen from us. And you are not Kuta Kinte. Now, deep in your heart, you know you're not Kuta Kinte. The question is, who are you? If you walk around America, you see a man with the name Pierre. Say, what kind of name is that? He'll say French. What language do you speak? French. Where are you from? France. Who owns France? Us Frenchmen. And if we ever have to leave America, we're going back to France. That's where we rule. You walk around America, you look at another man, he says his name is Kaufman. And he said, Guten Morgen. So what kind of name is that? German. What do you speak? German. Where are you from? Germany. Who owns Germany? Us Germans. If I ever have to leave America, I'm going back to Germany. You look at another man, he has a name, Gonzalez. What kind of name is that? Spanish. Where are you from? Spain. What language do you speak there? Spanish. Yep, if I have to leave America, I'm going back to Spain. Look at another man, he has a name, Ling Wong, Ping Pong, Ding Dong. You say, well, what kind of name is that? He say, Chinese. What do you speak? Chinese. Where are you from? China. I get my name from my land, Chinese name, Ling Wu. That's from the land of China.
Okay, so now we're going to hear some stuff from the one who informed on Yahweh Ben Yahweh himself.
Welcome back, people. This is episode number 10. Episode number 10. And so we will start off by talking about me and Karen being students at Miami-Dade Community College. I pledged a fraternity. During the time that I'm pledging the fraternity, my mother passes away. My mother dies. My whole fraternity is there to support me. It's a rough time. Episode 9 talks all about that. You can go back and review it if you need to. And I become a brother, a fraternity brother of Alpha Phi Omega. And here we are, somewhere late 1979, going into 1980. We'll just say 1980, January of 1980. I am now a brother of Alpha Phi Omega. Me and Karen are happy together. And we find out that she is expecting. So in this picture right here, she has a maternity top on. She is with our first child in this picture here. Yes, indeed. Our baby is due in November. So if the baby's due in November, 9 months back. So yes, this is 1980. Matter of fact, she's about 5 months here. So this is probably around April of 19.
So this is Brother Moses telling his story before he went into the cult. Seems like he's talking about when he was going college and stuff like that. So I will let him continue. It's a short one because he doesn't. This is not the one where he goes in about how he got the cult taken down. There is another one, but I don't want to make the video overly long. I just want to show Yahweh to the stuff what he's done as well, because he did a lot of beheading, a lot of money laundering. He still have books out to this day, so his followers still puts out books to this day. There's still Yahweh Ben Yahweh people around. And what's interesting enough, he started from the Nation of Islam, and then he progressed, and then he became the leader, the Messiah. Again, another one who's saying he's the Messiah, he's the God, he's the whatever. So all these big titles. What gets me about this character is the fact that he was so brutal and cruel with his members. Brutal and cruel. He made them do cruel things, and really, it's worthwhile listening to his story because his story is quite interesting. Being it was around the time of loads of riots and stuff and Black Power time, so he came up at the right time. So he grew really fast. From how the story is told, he grew fast. His members was very obedient to what he told them to do. They went out there and they really went crazy. Basically, I mean, luckily Khalil got him down because I think in Khalil's mind, they wasn't sorry the washing machine. Um, he had a choice between going to prison for a long time or giving up Yahweh Ben Yahweh, and plus that he was always on the police's dial anyway. They had him in their sight from long time, so it's not just like one or two coincidences why he got to got to where he is, why he got to who or what he was or what he is or what he became. Yeah, so there is a lot of sound bites on that too. But I'm gonna find another Khalil, because he does actually talk about when he informed and he started informing on Yahweh Ben Yahweh himself. So I'm gonna try put that up and yeah, just listen very carefully to what he says because he was the insider. He saw most things. So this what he's talking about now was before he went into the cult. So let's hear what happened during when he was in the cult.
Investigation Discovery Channel. Okay, our guest now today is Khalil Amani. Khalil, are you there?
I'm here. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much. Tell us about yourself. Who is Khalil Amani?
Well, Khalil Amani, first thing, Khalil Amani was not my birth name. I wasn't born Khalil Amani, but we'll get to there soon. But I grew up in Miami, Air Force parents, Air Force brat, growing up I'm 57 years old, so I grew up as a teenager in the 70s. Right after high school, I actually joined a religious cult in Miami. They called themselves, the people in the street called us the Yahwehs, but we were a black Hebrew Israelite sect, which there's been a lot of information over the years about this particular group. But like I said, I grew up, graduated from high school. Actually, I went to college for a year and dropped out. And it is because of the cult that I actually dropped out. I was actually at one of my fraternity brothers' house, just chilling, and he happened to have some literature about this religious group, and I started reading it, and I was quite fascinated by it. Going back to like elementary school, I've always been like a spiritual child, like a kid that always went to church. Like I had 4 other brothers and sisters and a sister, and none of them were like religious kids, but I was the religious kid in the family. So I'd get up on Sunday morning and get dressed and go to church by myself, Sunday school by myself. And my parents would sometimes argue at my siblings because they didn't want to go. And, they used to tell me, don't get up, don't go. But I was just that kid. So that love religion, love God. So at 10 years old, I actually got baptized of my own free will, fully understanding, the message of Jesus Christ and salvation. So that took me all through my, formative years being a spiritual kid. Along with being a spiritual kid, I was actually very much in tune with the plight of black folks in America. I remember being in the 5th grade, maybe 1968, and having a social studies teacher, a white lady, that was very progressive. Like, she really opened our eyes to what was going on. And if you can remember or know anything about 1968, that was like a great year for social studies. You had Kennedy, Robert Kennedy was assassinated. Martin Luther King was assassinated that year. You had the Kent State riots that year. Women's Lib was coming of age. The Black Power movement. All these great things were going on in America, and I had this teacher that was actually, engaging us to understand, the social climate of America during that time. So, along with being religious, I was a very, as you could say, conscious kid. Now, at home, Mom and Dad, they never talked about religion. Neither did they talk about anything going on with black people. My dad was he was a military guy, Air Force, like I said earlier, and he never spoke much. He never spoke on race and none of that stuff. Only thing he would say about America and racism and the white man, he would call the white man Chuck. I didn't understand what he meant back then, but now I do. But Chuck was his word of calling the white man, I guess, a cracker or a devil or whatever.
Now, Charlie, I think, is an old expression.
Charlie,
right?
Yeah, that's another name. He didn't use Charlie. He used Chuck.
Chuck, yeah.
I heard Charlie later on, but.
See, let me interrupt. See, I'm 55. I grew up in the South Bronx, 55 years old, so I know exactly what you're talking about, man.
Okay. Okay, we're similar age. I'm 57, so right there. So, he would say, boy, that Chuck is something else. And that would be the extent of his politics, I guess. So, I graduated from high school. I went to college for a year. I joined his fraternity. And one of my brothers, who happened to be going to some of this class, he had this literature on his coffee table, and I began to read it, and it said something like, "You are not a nigger, the world's best kept secret, Yahweh, God of gods." Now, all of that was foreign to me. I never heard the name Yahweh. Of course, I had heard, people call him nigger, but, okay, he's telling me, "You are the original Jews of the Bible, the world's best kept secret." What? Wait, hold on. Now, like I said, I was a religious kid. I read the Bible a lot. We had a beautiful Bible in our home with beautiful pictures of Europeans as God and Jesus and, the angels and, the prophets. And I would look at that Bible, I remember as a child, in awe and like, wow, these are, this is Jesus, represented, of course, as white people. Never really thinking that people from that region maybe possibly didn't look like that, but as a kid, you don't think about those kinds of things. So here I am reading this literature at 19 years old, telling me that I'm actually the original Jew and that the white man who I know as a Jew is not the original Jew. He's an imposter, according to this literature. And I'm just blown away. So while he's taking a shower, I'm reading it. And then he goes, the literature goes on to talk about people in the Bible and that are black. Like, say, for instance, the prophet Job. Job 30:30 says, "My skin is black upon me." And I'm just reading the literature, and I'm like, that's not in the Bible. So I'm looking around. I see he has a Bible there. I go to it. I flip through it. Sure enough, I see Job 30:30. "My skin is black upon me." And then go over to Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 5. "I am black but handsome." Wow. Go over to this, go over to Revelations, where Jesus is talked about as having hair like pure wool, which is kind of like black people. So now I'm starting to say, wow, this is crazy. I want to meet this man. I want to find out who this guy is because, I thought I was pretty knowledgeable on Bible stuff, but I had never read this stuff. And, of course, I hadn't read the Bible from the beginning to the end either, so I hadn't ran across it. So, of course, I asked my friend, who is this guy and where can I go to meet him? And he says, his name is Moses Israel. That's what he goes by, Moses Israel. And we go to class on Wednesday night. Yeah, you can come, sure. I said, is it cost? Do I have to dress up? He said, no. You can wear shorts. It don't matter. Just come. It's free. It's going to be at the Joseph Caleb Center. It's a little part of Miami, little center. So, of course, I go that next Wednesday, and I sit not in the front row because I was a little bit nervous, because when you walked in there, of course, right away you saw that they had security guards. It wasn't like going to church where everybody was like, hi, very nice and friendly and stuff. It was like a militant kind of situation. People had on kind of African garbs, dashikis, and things that were cultural, and the women had on like turbans, and you could see clearly this was I didn't feel like I was going to a religious class, but I felt like it was more of a history class. So I go in and I sit near the front, put myself in a position where I can actually see and hear very clearly. And so there's a guy that he comes up and he starts speaking, but he's not the main guy. He's just kind of warming the crowd up. And then he goes into this prayer, which I assume is Hebrew. And after that, he introduces Brother Moses. He was going by the name of Ak Moshe, which is Hebrew for Brother Moses. And so here comes out the side wing somewhere, I don't know where he came from, but comes to the podium. Black man, light skin, maybe 6 foot. He had on a leisure suit. Now, this is 1980. His suit looked like it might have been, it was dated. You could tell even the suit came out of like 1977 or something. Right out of that disco era.
Yeah, John Travolta,
yeah. He didn't have a tie on. He had the shirt over the lapel, and you could see part of his chest. That whole, Rico Suave, Saturday Night Fever look. So, and he had an afro, medium size, not overly huge, a nice round, small afro, and he's like a very light-skinned black man. And he began to speak, and he spoke very, in the beginning, he was very somber and quiet, and he smiled at the crowd, and I think he might have smiled at me. He kind of looked over my way, and I would say there probably was about 50 people in the room. It was a very small crowd. This was the genesis of the Yahweh cult. And so he began to speak, and to me it appeared that he was reading my mind, because he would talk about, he ran over some of the same things I had read in the literature, but I began to have questions in my mind, certain things he would say, and it appeared to me that he would answer them in the same sentence. And I could have sworn at one point he even looked at me and gave me a smile, kind of like I heard you thinking. And I'm blown away. I'm like, this guy, he's incredible. I looked at him like Malcolm X, like New X, he light skinned like him. And by the time I finished his lecture, he was roaring like a lion, like he was on some white man is the devil, white Jews are false, black people are Jews, black people are going to rule the world one day, we are the tribe of Judah, we are chosen to rule the world forever. And mind you, everything he was saying, he was actually giving scriptures, but of course he was applying it to black people. But he would show you scriptures, and he would say, for instance, Genesis 15:13 and Acts 7:6 talks in the Bible, talks about a people who would be put in slavery for 400 years and treated evil. And I know that kind of fits black folks' circumstance in America. That sounds about right. 400 years, slavery, treated evil. And I'm looking at those scriptures. Of course, I read those before and thought that was talking about the ancient Jews of Egypt. But he would explain that that's not talking about Egypt, talking about a future people, meaning us here right now, the transatlantic slave trade. So I bought into it right away. It fit where I was at mentally at 19 years old. Yeah, he was a very fiery orator. I remember at the end of class, him going through the audience, kind of shaking hands and talking to people. And I really wanted to meet him, but I think I've been afraid of somebody like that ever. The way I had a fear of him, just a fear of this man. And some kind of way he made his way over to me. I was like, oh God. And when he came up to me, I just kind of dropped my head because I didn't really want to look in his eyes. I don't know why.
It's intimidating.
He grabbed my...
Yeah.
Excuse me?
It's intimidating. You know, it's a charismatic figure, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. Intimidation. He grabbed my hand, and I swear, to this day, I've never felt a man's hand that was as soft as his hands. like a baby's butt. And then his fingernails were immaculately groomed, and they were long, like if you ever seen a pimp. You know, pimps are known to have like long fingernails for whatever reason. But he had these long, beautifully manicured fingernails, and they were coated with a coat of clear fingernail polish. And he took my hand and squeezed it, and kind of forced me to look up at him. And he says, "Shalom, son." He kind of made me feel got over my fear. He said, "Shalom, son. Just wanted you to know I saw you enjoying the class, and I hope that you come back and study with us," something to that effect. And I said, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I definitely will be back." And that was it. And when I left out of there shaking. Now, the strangest thing about this particular man, who we were calling Ak Moshe, is that for a black man, he had the strangest color eyes. Like, if someone said, "Well, what color is his eyes?" I couldn't tell you if they were either gray or green or blue. And that's kind of strange for, black people usually have either black eyes or brown. And sometimes you see light brown. But it's just nothing like what I've ever seen. And I don't think I've seen eyes like that since then. They were like, depending on where he might have been standing in the light, whatever, they went from like brown to kind of a green to kind of a blue to a grayish. So they were light, let's put it that way. They were strange for a black man. And, that's something that over the years as I began to delve into the cult, that was a conversation that came up here and there about his eyes. Now, in the book of Revelations, it talks about Jesus, and it gives a description of him, and it says he had hair like wool, and he says he has eyes as a flame of fire. So we began to, once I joined and got into this cult, he began to say, in the beginning he didn't say that he was somebody special, but he would hint by saying woolly hair and eyes as a flame of fire. And then he would say, "Look at my eyes." And he would pause and stop and smile at the congregation, and people would kind of, put that with him. Now, honestly, the first time I met him, and this is God honest truth, I thought he was Jesus. I thought this man was actually Jesus. And he never said that to me. That's just what I got from everything he said, and then his physical appearance, and then the way he made me feel. Like, I've been in front of a lot of preachers and other folks in my time, and never, there was no mystic to it. It was just another man talking about God. But he made me feel a certain type of way. And then with his eyes and all that stuff put into the puzzle, I was like, "Ooh." So I went home that day, and of course I went to my girlfriend's house, and I'm 19, she's 18. Of course, what young people like to do. We want to have sex, but I'm like, "No, I don't want to have sex. I want to tell you about this man." So she tried to make out. I'm trying to tell her about this man named Ak Moshe, Moses Israel. You got to come to the class next Wednesday. This guy is Jesus. He didn't say he was Jesus, but I'm telling you, babe, this guy is Jesus. That was, she's looking at me, and she's not looking at me like I'm crazy. She actually is saying, "Okay, I'll go." Now, mind you, we're talking about April of 1980. By then, my mother had passed away maybe 8 months ago. Before that, my father, our relationship was always strained from as far back as I can remember. My father raised me, in the household, my mom and dad, two-parent household, but there never was a time in my life as a child that my father showed any kind of affection or love to me. He never told me he loved me. Mm-hmm. He never came out and played football with us. He never held my hand. He never wrestled with me on the living room floor. He never walked by, and pinched my ear. Just things that show affection. But so there was nothing between him, there was no bond, And when my mom passed away, he was just the man that ruled. He was just the man, I guess, fed and sheltered us as a child. So he had no kind of connection, nothing. So I can remember going to him in 1981. Now I've joined the cult. I've actually become a full-time member, which means I gave up my job, dropped out of college, and I'm living in a building that we purchased with this man, Ak Moshe. Me and my wife were married. Now we got married in June of 1980. We got married.
Well, let me stop you there for a second, because so now this time you joined the cult. Now was because I noticed in the pictures of Moses Israel that there's a lot of UFO stuff. Right? Was he now? But when you joined the cult, was he already talking about that UFO stuff, or did that come up later?
That came up later.
Okay.
He began. Well, it didn't come up too much later. He would quote, like, let's say Psalm 68:4, which says, "Sing praises unto God, sing praises unto Him who rides upon the heavens by His name, Jah." That's what it says. So he would key in on the word Jah, J-A-H, and explain to us that in the original Hebrew there is no J. So all the J's you see in the Bible were originally Y's. So it should be Yah, which is short for Yahweh. And then he would hone in on the rides upon the heavens. Then he would say, well, if God is a spirit, why would he need to ride? Spirits don't ride. And then he would, later on, as we got on, he would talk about that God is a man. Daniel 7:9 speaks of God as the Ancient of Days, and says and describes God as having hair like pure wool, and that he sits on a throne. And he was explaining that, spirits don't need to have hair, spirits don't sit on thrones, spirits don't ride upon the heavens. And then he would go on, and there's scriptures in Deuteronomy and Revelations, and of course Ezekiel, which talks about Ezekiel's wheel, the wheel in the middle of a wheel, and explain that that's what we call a UFO. But Yahweh, well, we'll call him Ak Moshe, or Brother Moses at the time, he called it the mothership. And he said that God rides in a mothership, and then we go over like Ezekiel, where Ezekiel looks up into the heavens and he sees, and he describes it, creatures within the middle of these wings and eyes round about the vehicle. And then he would explain to us that he would say something like, if you were thrust 3,000 years into the future, could you name the things you were looking at? And the answer would probably be no. Mm-hmm. And so here is Ezekiel looking at things that were technically so far advanced from his time that all he could do was describe them. So he described winged creatures, eyes round about the vehicle, about the wings. You just, kind of like that. It's kind of like if we were in, like I say, we lived in the 1700s and we all of a sudden came to the 21st century and saw cars. What would we say? Oh, they were something moving and people were inside them. So he explained that the UFOs, he had several names for them. One name he always called them was the glory. And he would, because that word glory appears to be throughout the Bible a word that has to do with some kind of object. And there's a great scripture in Deuteronomy where Moses is asking to look to see God's glory. And, God tells him, you cannot see my glory. He says, but what I'll do, I'll put you up on a rock and I'll cover your eyes up. And when my glory passes by, I'll let you see my back parts, with the S, plural, back parts. So that's kind of a interesting kind of scripture. Like, what do you mean glory? When I pass by, I'll let you see my back parts. And so Ak Moshe would explain that is a UFO. So we definitely believed in you. Excuse me?
No, I didn't say anything, but I was thinking something. Maybe you read my mind. Okay. It's because back in those days, like now, it's very common, and people, they think that UFOs and gods and stuff like that. But back in those days, it's very uncommon. And then, was he a student of like Eric Von Daniken and Chariots of the Gods? Did he ever mention that kind of stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
On our reading list, of course, we have the Bible, which is our number one source. But coincidentally, one of our reading lists was Eric Von Daniken's Chariots of the Gods. So, yeah, that was, he had several books. Babylon to Timbuktu by Rudolph Windsor, Chariots of the God by Eric Van Daniken, and there were 2 or 3 other books that were required reading. And what he would do as we got along, he would actually take those books. I actually worked in the printing press part of the group, and we would actually take the pages apart, and we would basically copy the whole book and put it together and sell it to each other, sell it to the members. And that was one of the books.
How many members were there in total?
Well, in the beginning, I think we started out about, when I came in, there was probably maybe between 40 and 60 people.
Okay.
By the time I left in 1985, we were in most of the cities in America, the major cities in America, and I would say we were probably up maybe 5,000 to 8,000, maybe more, maybe a little less, somewhere up in that range. Because every city, pretty much every major city, there was a temple. I was actually they had what they called elders who he would send to these cities, and their job was to, of course, get a temple and get a following, get a congregation, and of course all those funds and monies are sent back to Miami headquarters. But in 1983, Ak Moshe sent me to Newark, New Jersey to start a temple there. I became what they call an elder. I'm only 23 years old, but I was labeled an elder. It was a class you had to go to, classes. Once you passed those classes, you were sent to a city. So I was mind you, I'm married now. I have 2 children. And when he sends the elders out and allow the family, the children, the wives to go, you have to go by yourself. And he kind of goes on where Jesus talked about sending his disciples out to the world and sending them out without money or food, nothing.
I think that was one of the women that he tried to seduce, and then she told the husband that Yahweh tried to seduce her or something like that. Because I heard that story before. He sent them out with hardly anything. I think they basically had to live off whatever money they was making off the books or whatever. For what I remember of the dramatization of it. So Khalil is actually, it's interesting that he talks about that, because I think that right there was one of the times when when the men went, he'll try to take advantage of the women as well. But I think Khalil's going to hit on that one, But let me listen.
Just go, and he would quote the scripture which says, are we not more important than the fowl of the air? If God takes care of the fish of the sea, then surely he'll take care of you. So in 1983, he gave me a one-way bus pass to Newark, New Jersey, which I had never been there. I had zero money in my pocket.
It's a lot different than Miami, right?
Exactly. I had zero money in my pocket. All I had was a box of literature.
Oh, boy. And
he said, go. So, actually, I didn't know a soul in the city. I didn't know where I was going to be staying. They said there wasn't no reservations. You're going to stay at this hotel until you get, no, here's a box of literature. Here's a one-way ticket. Go. And I did. So I got off. I remember getting off. I got there on a Friday night about 9 p.m., got off in Penn Station in downtown Newark, New Jersey. It was a cold May night, and I had on long robe, sandals, and no socks or shoes, just sandals, and my feet were freezing. And he said my instructions were to get off the bus when you get there, pass out literature, ask for donations, you get up enough money, get on the bus, and go to the hood, go to the ghetto, go to where black people live, and get off and begin your mission. And that's what I did. I got some donations, and I'll tell you this quick story. As I was getting donations inside of the Penn Station, I saw 3 or 4 guys, black guys, dressed similar to me. And I smiled and said, oh, I knew they weren't part of who I was with, but I knew maybe they could help me or assist me or something.
Yeah, close enough, right?
Yeah, close something. Yeah. They were actually members of Malachi York's group. By then, at that time, he was going by the name of Imam Isa.
There you go, Earl. Your question got answered. Earl, your question get answered. So Khalil bumped into Malachi's crew, Malachi Z. York's crew at the time. So they must have hung around him for a bit. Okay. All right. See, Earl, your question got answered.
So it was a long name. I don't even know how to say it. But Imam Isa was his name, and they were out of Brooklyn, New York at the time, Bushwick Ave. And, of course, I didn't know anything about that. I know that now. But they came up, and when I tell you they accosted me, it was like 3 or 4 of them, and one of them wanted to jump on me. He was a little fellow, too, by my side. But I was only, at 23, I was 5'6", 115 pounds.
Wow.
I was a little fellow, a little pipsqueak. So... And these guys, they surrounded me, and they started interrogating me. What are you about? Who are you with? Let me see that literature, And I'm trying to be nice to them. I'm smiling. I'm trying to give them I had a little memorized Yahweh speech that he had told us to memorize, so that when we meet people, we can say this. It was kind of a testimony kind of thing. They weren't trying to hear any of that. They were like, basically I was actually taking money out of their pockets because that's where they were panhandling. So. After that little episode, I got up out of there, and I got on the number 31 bus. I remember it clear as day, and went up. It took me up what they call South Orange Ave, and he said go to the ghetto. As far as I was concerned, the whole city was a ghetto to me. It just looked terrible. Like it wasn't sunny like South Florida in Miami. Palm trees. It was brick jungle. So actually, they call it Brick City, Newark. So I got on the bus, and like now it's like 10 o'clock, and I'm riding. And while I'm on the bus, some lady behind me taps me on my shoulders, a little black woman, and she asks me, what am I about? Which is, and I gave her some literature, and actually we had a little book. We had a little yellow book. It was Yahweh Ben Yahweh's, I guess, his only book, if you want to call it a book, but it's paperback. It was more of a pamphlet, about 60-page pamphlet maybe, and it was called Yahweh, God of Gods. You are not a nigger. Our true history, the world's best kept secret. That was the name of the book. And so I gave her the book. We usually try to get a donation before we give the book out, but I gave her. She turned around. She gave me like $3 or $4. I said thank you, and I just continued watching the street as I rode on the bus. And then at some point I said, well, clearly I know now. Clearly I'm in the hood. I'm going to get off. And mind you, it's cold. It's kind of almost a little slight rain coming down. It's just nasty outside. But I got to get out. I got to get off the bus. So I get off the bus, and coincidentally...
I love hunting down a good deal online, like trial offers that are 90% off.
Chocolate discoveries. And they make the finest, silky, smooth chocolate because the products start with the best cocoa beans, which are tested for quality and flavor by expert technicians. The cocoa...
And so here we go. Now I'm in Newark in 1983, back to the story. And I'm there. I ended up, teaching that lady that night. And I ended up staying with her. She asked me where was I going to stay, and I was like, I don't really have a place. So she ended up, after a little bit of arguing, because I said I'd sleep on the couch, she said, no, you're going to sleep in my bed. So she slept on the couch. I slept in the bed. And that was my home, not for too long, because it quickly turned into something more than more than teaching. She wanted to be, I guess, of course, now remember, I'm married.
Yeah.
I got a wife in Miami. But to go back, while I was in Miami before I went to Newark, Yahweh Ben Yahweh, every Saturday morning, he would read, he would give us an update on what the other elders were doing in the different cities. And he would talk about who raised the most money. And then he would go into talking about different elders that were taking multiple wives. We believed in polygamy, although Yahweh Ben Yahweh said we shouldn't practice it.
God damn, I have to stop that one quick. So polygamy came up. So Yahweh was taking their women, and then he changed it into polygamy.
Here in America because we're not ready to, but that is part of who we are. That's part of the laws, blah, blah, blah. But some elders who were married and had wives in Miami began to take a wife or wives in different cities. So any Saturday morning you could hear him and he'd go, Elder Dan in Atlanta, and we'd all look over at his wife while he's talking. He just took wife number 3, and we'd all kind of laugh and clap and shout. And of course we're looking at the wife, and the wife has that look on her face. Whenever someone did something that you didn't really like, but you really couldn't say anything about, the standard retort was, "Praise Yahweh," and so that's what she was doing. I actually had my own bout with the polygamy thing before I went to Newark, where I had a young woman that came at me and was saying, we began to flirt, me and my wife. For some reason, we just weren't talking anymore, and sexually we weren't doing anything no more for like months. And I began.
Because Yahweh had her, obviously. She's distracted by another man. Can you speak up?
Mind you, I'm 23. I'm still a young man. Hormones raging. And I began to look at this other young girl. Maybe she was 19 or 20. And nothing ever happened, but it came to the point where she actually went to Yahweh Ben Yahweh and said, I'm interested in Brother Yehuda. Yehuda was my Hebrew name. And he said, oh, really? So one day he called a meeting of myself, this girl, and my wife, which she had no clue about this situation. And he got us together and he said, well, Sister Malka, which is my wife, Sister Amana, the other girl, wants to marry your husband. What do you think about that? And, of course, she gave the standard, praise Yahweh. And then so Yahweh Ben Yahweh said, well, it's part of our law. So what I'm going to do is, for the next couple of weeks, I want y'all to sit together in dinner time and get to know each other, and we'll see how things go from there. And so here, now we're having dinner and breakfast together. Well, not really breakfast, but dinner. The three of us, very awkward situation. No one's talking because we don't know what to talk. I'm 23. My wife is 22. This girl's probably 20. We have 3 kids. We don't know what the hell's going on. But we're sitting with each other, and now I have 2 kids, and this girl, she has a daughter. So 3 kids and 3 of us. And it's just a very awkward situation. And during the evening times, Yahweh Ben Yahweh used to make me drive this little van to take some of the workers home who didn't live in the temple. And she was one of them. That's kind of how we started flirting. So one night, my wife decides she's tired of me driving this woman home in beautiful, romantic Miami by night, and decides she's going to go on the ride with us. And she leaves our daughter at the temple in the room by herself. My daughter's at the time 2.
Oh, my God.
2 or 3, yeah.
What the hell? That is crazy. So because of her jealousy, she left the baby by herself. I bet I'm not going to like the rest of this story, innit? I'm not going to like the rest of this story.
Yeah, just leaves her in the room. So while we're driving, I have no clue. All I know is that I figured that she's giving our child to somebody to watch. And now my wife, she hasn't had her second child. That's right. She's about 7, 8 months pregnant. So she's on the bus with us. And so when we get back to the temple, the baby is missing. Our baby is not in the room. Evidently, the baby woke up and was crying, and somebody heard it and came in and took the baby. So the baby, Yahweh Ben Yahweh, actually had our child. And, of course, the next call we had, he scolded my wife for leaving the child unattended. And then he said, I'm going to fix this thing right now. It was a Sunday. And he said, where is Sister Amana? That's the young girl that was trying to marry me. And they said, she's out by the outside doing something. Bring her in here. And so she comes in, and Yahweh Ben Yahweh says, Sister Amana, if you want to marry Brother Yehuda, go stand next to him. Me and my wife, we were in the congregation, but we were on opposite ends of the room for whatever reason. So she comes over and stands by me, like, oh my, I'm thinking, please don't come over here. But she does. So Yahweh Ben Yahweh says, it's done, it's finished. You're his wife. And then he tells my wife, you go over there and join him and hug. And of course, the congregation is going crazy, bonkers crazy, with the, between clapping and laughing and.
Yeah, there's a wedding video somewhere with two women and a child. So that might be their wedding.
This is hysteria, because this is the first time that a polygamous relationship has been done at headquarters at the main lab. All the other ones were done around the country. So I'm the first one that has a polygamous situation right there at headquarters. So everybody's going crazy, screaming. My wife comes over, and he makes the three of us hug, and he says, you all are married. So that was my polygamous situation. It only lasted about a couple of weeks. We never consummated. We never had sex, me and the girl, because at the time my wife was due to have a child any day now. So I didn't want to be laid up at some woman's house having sex while my wife was going into labor. So I told her, look, it's going to have to wait till after his child's born, blah, blah, blah. And this young girl was pressuring me like every night, like, we're going to have sex. You're my husband. We're going to have sex. And then I ended up going and finding Yahweh Ben Yahweh in the hallway and says, please, can you annul this relationship? I'm not ready for no second wife. And then in class later on, he actually did that. He said that we're not married anymore. So that was that situation.
It's just crazy the way you say, well, I ran into him in the hallway.
I ran him into the hallway. See, the temple, the temple, though, headquarters was a big-ass warehouse.
Yeah, I saw pictures,
that was converted into an auditorium, and then there's a partition wall, and on the other side there were, like, we called them offices, but they were actually bedrooms, because we were living in a commercial zone, which you're not supposed to be sleeping in commercial buildings. So way back in the beginning, we had the fire department, fire marshals would come randomly to see if people were living there. So on each apartment door, it was a sign said office. And we actually had tables and desks and stuff in there. And we kind of knew when they were coming, so we would rearrange. So when they came through, it kind of looked like a bunch of offices, but really, we were living there. Now, mind you, these little offices that we had, bedrooms, let's just say the ceiling was 12 foot, but the walls only went up, the sheetrock walls only went up to about maybe, say, 8 or 9 feet. So sound can jump from one room to the other. So things like having sex was a problem. Like, you had to be really, really quiet because you didn't want to, everybody could hear you.
Right.
And even just conversations, there was just no room for privacy. And I'll tell you this one story too before we go further. The first time I got beat by at the request of Yahweh Ben Yahweh. So one Friday night, Yahweh Ben Yahweh had, on Friday nights, he would have what they call midwife class, where he would take a bunch of sisters in his office, and it was very secretive and very private, and they were learning things about being a midwife, how to deliver children. And my wife was part of that group. So one night, after midwife class, me and her, and she had a cousin that was part of the group. Her biological cousin was part of the group. They were sitting there with three of us, and they were making some little jokes about the size of cucumbers. They were giggling and laughing and snickering. It was something that had happened in midwife class that I wasn't privy to, but they were kind of making the joke in front of me, and it was kind of pissing me off. It was kind of getting under my skin. First thing, it was the Sabbath. On the Jewish Sabbath, we don't have sex, and we don't even talk about sex. So they were kind of having an unrighteous, in my mind, an unrighteous conversation. And I was kind of a little jealous because they were talking about cucumbers and sizes, and to me, basically they were comparing the sizes of men's dicks or something. I don't know what it was about, but that's the gist of it. So later that night, I tell my wife, I said, what was that conversation about? It wasn't like an argument. It was more of a conversation that I was having with my wife, and she got really upset and pissed that I was asking her about her midwife business. And so straightway she gets up and goes and finds Yahweh Ben Yahweh. Now it's about 10 or 11 o'clock at night. Finds him and tells him that I was up in their business. Now I don't know this, but that's what she does. Maybe about midnight, there's a knock on the door where all the full-time workers are told to meet in the auditorium in 5 minutes in the cafeteria. In 5 minutes, so we all met, maybe about 56, nobody, probably about 100 of us. We all met in the auditorium at midnight. And I've pretty much forgotten about our little conversation. I'm thinking, I don't know what's going on, but so we're in there, Yahweh Ben Yahweh was in, and he's smiling, he's soft-spoken, he's walking around the cafeteria, he's looking at everybody. He's telling us about the wonderful works of Yahweh and what's going on with the nation and the things we're doing. And then he stops and he stands right next to me where I'm sitting and puts his hand on my shoulder and says, what do you think about a brother who's worried about the size of another man's penis? And when he said that, the auditorium bust out laughing. Everybody save me. So I knew what this 12 o'clock meeting was about. Mm. And from there, he proceeds to say, Brother Yehuda, myself, so I hear you've been stressing your wife. You've been asking about her business and stuff. And I'm like, just sitting there. He's like, you haven't been following the order for a while. I have no clue what he meant by that, but he was making up stuff. So he tells Sister Judith, who was the second in command, his common-law wife, but he doesn't claim her as a wife, but that's what she was. Go get that paddle. And so she go get the paddle, and he says, Brother Yehuda, I want you to go. He says, stand up. So I stand up, and he puts the chair in the middle of everybody. He says, I want you to try to sit down in that chair. So I go and sit down in the chair. He goes, no. I said, try to sit down. So I stand up, and I sit down again. He says, no. He makes me stand up. He says, do you understand try? To try means to fail. So, okay, whatever. So I'm looking crazy. He said, now I want you to bend over that chair. I want you to bend over. He said, I want every sister in here who can swing a paddle to line up. I'd say there was probably 30 sisters there. He said, I don't care if you're 5 years old or 100. If you can swing a paddle, get in line. He said, I would let the brothers whip your ass, but you were in a college fraternity. You've been through hell night. You could take that kind of stuff, which is true. He said, but I'm going to humiliate you. I'm going to let the sisters take care of you. So about 30 sisters lined up, starting with my wife. He said, each one of you get 3 licks apiece.
Oh,
so,
my God.
Bye. My wife, clearly, I could see on her face, she did not mean it for her to go here. But here it is. So she paddles me 3 times. They weren't that hard. And then Sister Judith, she really tried to leave that board up my ass, I could tell, but she didn't know how to swing it, so she was actually hitting me on my lower back and missing. But there were some women that could swing it. Oh yeah. So by the time, and there were some 7-year-olds. So by the time all 30 or so women, got done with me, those 90 or so licks had multiplied and added up. My butt really is hurting. Like it's on fire. So after that, everybody goes to their room, and I just lay on the floor of the cafeteria, bawling, just crying. They just left me laying there, and he said, everybody go to bed. And he didn't say nothing to me, just left me there. Even including my wife, left me. So I'm laying there, pitch black, dark, lights out, everything. I'm laying there, and probably about half hour later, my wife comes, and she says, Yehuda, let's go to bed. And so I get up, and she walks me to my bed, walks me to her room, and she undresses me and she looks at my butt and sees that, it's welting. She says she's sorry. And now, mind you, again, it's a Sabbath night. It's a Sabbath, but you don't have sex on Sabbath. But we end up having sex that night, and she's crying while we're having sex, and she's kind of saying to whoever, God or whatever, I just love this man. I just love this man. And that at that moment, I knew that our relationship was.
So did he change the story then, from getting beat up to saying that now it's turning he got whooped by 30 women? But maybe he did get beaten up as well. Who knows, isn't it? Cause we weren't there. We're just going by what he's saying. He must have got beaten up by the men as well. I would think. And then she pick him up and bring him back to the room.
It's pretty much just about over. It was, I could never trust her again because her allegiance was not to me; it was to Yahweh Ben Yahweh.
Now had you seen other men or women getting beat like that before?
Yes.
Before?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There had been brothers and sisters who had been beaten. Not as many licks as I took, but gotten paddled for little indiscretions. One time, a woman was made to take off her whole top, her bra, everything, breast showing, exposed to everybody, and hit switch over the back. He was brutal. He was brutal in his methodology when it came to punishment, and even his own family members he would do dirty. Michael, the black man, he could tell you these stories, but of course he's not going to. He's not going.
Wait, did he ever get a beating like that?
Did
he ever get a beating?
No, not him, but his brother did. Now, his brother, to this very day, this very second, is my best friend. He's closer to me than my own brothers are. His brother is closer to me than he is to him. But as far as Michael, the black man, he was he kept his nose clean. He didn't really. He was an elder, but he never got sent out of town to do anything. He was just kind of one of the flunkies at headquarters. We all were flunkies, Of course, we had back in '81. We're going back before I went back to kind of jumped ahead. Before I went to Jersey, there were a couple of people that were actually killed. One guy beheaded. There was an incident where Yahweh Ben Yahweh was. This is when he was in the early stages of him teaching that he was somebody special. There was a group.
Real talk, are you talking that the fact that how he got beaten up by the wives because there was a rule passed saying that how they shouldn't be talking about a man's eggplant, and the thing is that he was talking about the eggplant with the wife, the size and stuff like that, and basically I think the rules of the day is like if you talk about stuff like that, right, you get punished, and that was his punishment. But like Earl said, he said he got beaten up. He said, did he just say the K word? The K word? I'll check it. But yeah, but he said that the cucumber, yeah, right. He said that he got beaten up by 30. No, he got beaten with a paddle by 30 women. So when Earl said he got beaten up, right, I think after the 30 women beat him, then they gave him a hiding after that because probably his wife was talking about sizes of men's eggplant or cucumber, however, which way, yeah. So he said some people got killed and beheaded. Yeah, they did. They did. Some of the members, I think he was a member or a person from outside. But anyway, I let him tell the story because as he's telling it, I feel like I'm sitting right there with him. You know what I mean? And I'm listening to this story and it's just like, bro, he went through a lot. So those pictures, what he showed was probably in his 20s when he got married to the girl before he went to the cult.
Led by an elderly, not elderly, I was in my 20s, he probably was in his 40s, gentleman who was from Jamaica, And he was pretty biblically smart, and he just wasn't having the ideal that Yahweh Ben Yahweh or Ak Moshe was someone special, someone spoken of in the scriptures. He wasn't having it. And he began to talk to certain people and was saying that Yahweh Ben Yahweh was deviating from scripture, trying to insert himself into the scriptures. He just wasn't having it. And so, long story short, there began to be a rift among, it may have been maybe 10 or 15 people that just weren't having it. So they stopped coming to the whole class and were teaching a class at someone's home or whatever. Meanwhile, Yahweh Ben Yahweh started a lecture of classes about the hypocrite must die. He even had some literature printed out. I remember it was in November of 1980 where he talked about the hypocrite must die. We're talking about them. He taught hard and said, basically he told us if we catch him, kill him. He said it in coded word and used the Bible to say it. But we got the message that if we caught these guys, they have to go. So an incident happened back in 81 where I happened to be standing guard. All the men who lived in the temple had to do a 2-hour guard duty. So it was my guard duty time. You just basically sat at the front desk. We had a foyer area. You sat at the front desk, and if anyone came up, you greeted them and asked them what they wanted. So up drives one of the so-called hypocrites. His name was Elijah. Now, Elijah was probably, I'd say 6 feet, maybe close to 200 pounds. Again, I'm 5'6", 110, because we had a special diet we ate. We ate 1 meal a day, which consisted of beans, rice, bread, and water. 1 time a day. That was it. No meat. So I was very skinny, very skinny. So up comes this big old guy, Elijah, which I knew him. He knew me. And he asked to speak with Ak Moshe. And I greeted him at the front door. And I knew that Ak Moshe wasn't there because I had saw him when him and his secretary left. So I asked him, what did he want? He said, he's a Jamaican accent. I want to speak with Ak Moshe. I said, well, he's not here. So he kind of left. He got to his car and realized that he left his Bible. He had a Bible with him. He left the Bible in the temple with me. So he came back in there. But between the time he came up to get his Bible, I went and got a couple of brothers. One brother in particular who was the head of the whole nation's security. His name was Enoch Israel, probably 6'5", 300 pounds, just intimidating fellow. I told him that the guy was outside, and I said, he's coming back to get his Bible. So when he came back, Enoch had rounded up maybe 8 or 9, 10 guys, and we're all in the foyer together with this guy. And he says, Enoch says, you want to talk to Ak Moshe? He says, yes, I want to talk with Ak Moshe. So he says, come on. So we kind of surrounded him, and we walked him back through. Now, if you know, our temple is kind of a maze of corridors and hallways. We walked him back, and as we got halfway to wherever they were going, Enoch tells me, because I was a security guy on duty that day, he says, go to the side door post. And I don't know why he told me to do that, because I was at the front door. So I make a beeline and make a quick right, and I go down another hall and go to the side door. The side door, when you open it, it leads out to just the side of the temple, which is a gated area, and there's stuff that goes on in the back side, construction or whatever, but it's just a side area. So I go stand there, and they continue on back. Now I know where they're going because I only know there's only one place they could be going, and that's to the very back, and where there's a loading dock. Our temple, remember, used to be a warehouse, and it has that big gate where you can rise up, where 18-wheeler trucks can pull up to unload goods and service. Yeah. So they're going back to the loading dock, and sure enough, they go back there, and the next thing you know, I hear thumps and bumps and grunts and moans and, just activity. So I know they're probably giving him the business, beating him up. So my curiosity got the best of me, so I tiptoe back. And I don't want the brothers to see me because I've already been given an order where I should be. So I creep around the corner, I stick my head around the corner, and I see, sure enough, I see this guy Elijah. He's on the ground, and I see my so-called Hebrew brothers just pummeling him. I'm talking foot stomps, maybe a hand.
Oh, so this is the man that they're going to behead right now, yeah? The Jamaican man. But, you know, it's strange. When they talk about it on the files, they don't specify where the man come from. Okay, that explains a lot. So this is the man that they're going to behead right now. Okay, so they're beating him up, and now they're going to behead him.
Hammer, objects, they are really taking it to him. So once I realized what's going on, I hurry back to my post. And so I'm at my post now, heart racing a mile a minute, you know. I remember getting teary-eyed, my mouth dry, you know, I'm scared. You know, Yahweh Ben Yahweh had talked about this stuff, but I didn't know if I believed that it would actually happen, but I'm thinking they're going to kill it. They're going to kill that guy. Mm. So here I am at my post, and Michael the Black Man was one of them, just so you know. He was one of them back there, because he was full-time with me. As a matter of fact, I'm the one who brought Michael the Black Man into the cult, just so you put that on the record.
Okay.
Okay, so after that, they wrap him up. Now, we had this green carpet that we had carpeted the temple with, so we had some extra green carpet back there and masking tape. So next thing you know, here they come, and they're carrying him. And as they go by me, now I know why I'm at the side door. They tell me to open the door. So I open the door, and they carry his body by me. He's still alive, because I can hear him grunting and moaning, but his head is covered with, his head is wrapped in some green carpet with masking tape that's wrapped around the carpet to hold it in place. And Enoch, who was the head of security, he drove this big 75 Ford Galaxy, 4-door, big car. He pulls it up to the back door, unlocks his trunk, and they throw the guy, Elijah, into the trunk. And then Enoch and 2 other brothers get inside the car. They get a machete. They throw the machete in the back seat, and off they go. And they're gone about, I'm going to say, an hour, 2 hours. So while they're gone, Ak Moshe comes back. So immediately, of course, when he pulls up, myself and 2 other brothers, matter of fact, it was myself, it was a brother named Brother Joseph, and Michael the Black Man, the 3 of us. We pull Yahweh Ben Yahweh to the corner. We tell him what transpired, and he's like, praise Yahweh. Yahweh is killing our enemies. Praise Yahweh. And that's that. He goes in, and we just we go back. We actually clean up there's blood and there's stuff in the back. We actually clean up the blood. We take acid or something, and we clean the area. And so they come back, and we see Yahweh Ben Yahweh talking to those 3 guys who had taken him out. And I guess they're giving him the details of what they did. So, of course, the next day or so, it's reported in the paper that a jogger finds a body without a head on the outskirts of the Everglades. All this is on the internet. You can Google it.
Right.
So that was Elijah. So Elijah was beheaded, and from there, the people that were against us, that were former members, they began to go into hiding. Of course, Elijah's roommate was killed maybe a week or so later, and the roommate's girlfriend, she had been cut by a machete and shot. They thought she was dead, but she survived, and the government put her in the witness protection program. She wasn't able to see who her attackers were because they had on masks, but I knew who they were. A guy named Amory, and a guy named Dan. They were karate experts. They took care of that situation. So, as a full-time worker, you were privy to a lot of stuff, just because you were a full-time worker. The walls have eyes, so to speak, and ears, so you hear things and see things. So there began to be several other murders during that time. This is early 81. This is before I go to Newark. Now, while I'm in Newark, I finally established a temple. I got a little congregation, 20, 30 people following me, and I get a phone call, first from my wife. Now we're missing each other terribly because we're around each other. So she calls me, and she tells me about the incident where there's this guy named Leonard Dupree. He's a karate expert himself from New Orleans. Evidently, he took some scissors and was threatening a sister to stab her or something inside the temple for whatever reason. So somebody ran, they went and got Yahweh Ben Yahweh and all the brothers that happened to be in the building at the time. They got the guy in one of our rooms, and they surrounded him. And Yahweh Ben Yahweh asked him point blank, "Are you here to kill me?" And the guy supposedly said, "This is what my wife is telling me on the phone, because she was there." And he said, "I'm here to worship you." And then Yahweh Ben Yahweh continues to prompt him, like, "I heard you're a karate expert, blah, blah, blah." He says, "Well, I have a karate expert here too." So he calls brother Amory, who's a karate expert, black belt in Kung Fu. So he said, "You can fight him." So they square off. And this guy from New Orleans, who just happened to come down to visit, he knocks out Amory with one punch, I am told. Like, it wasn't even a fight. Like, so they squared off. Wow. I heard he was like fifth in the world in his division or something like that in karate. Anyway, he knocks out Yahweh Ben Yahweh's guy. As soon as he does that, like a beehive, they descend upon him and they beat him up. And Michael the Black Man was there for that. As a matter of fact, Michael the Black Man was the one that took I think it was a tire jack, and gouged out his eye. He went and got a tire jack and gouged out the guy's eye. And he was beaten. Like I said, my wife was there. Yahweh made every there, whether it was a child or whether it was a woman, put hands on that body so that if anyone went and told, they would be in themselves because you hand in the guy's murder. As a matter of fact, Yahweh Ben Yahweh's biological sister, she was there, and I heard she was crying hysterically because she didn't want to take part in it, and he made her go kick the body. So everybody put their hands on the body, and of course they got rid of him, and that's that story. That happened while I was in Newark, New Jersey. So criminality was part of the cult. Yahweh Ben Yahweh had a thing that he would say based on scripture, and that was, when anyone messes with us, and once we kill them, we're not going to try to hide the body and all that stuff. He wanted all the people to hear and fear, and he would base that on some scripture. That's why when the guy was beheaded, he was found right away, right on the side of the road. He wasn't like, they could have buried his body, they could have gotten rid of him.
Right.
But that's not the Yahweh way. We want you to know. Well, you can't prove it, but we want you to believe that it was us that took care of the business. So that was a common theme. And so in Miami, you had people, as you went around, we'd go around soliciting donations and stuff. People would say, "You go Yahweh, I go my way." That was a common thing you heard all the time. Because people were afraid. Pretty much every black person in Miami, or most black people in Miami, had some relative that was hooked up with the sect, with the cult, and had heard the things. Even the black politicians, they had heard the rumors of the beheading. They had heard all the stuff that was going on. They had heard the criminality that was going on. So let's go up to 1985.
Well, I just want to stop for 1 second because people need to know, when you keep saying Michael the Black Man, you're talking about Maurice Simonette, the man
Absolutely.
who stands behind the President of the United States of America.
Absolutely. The man who stood behind the President of the United States, Michael the Black Man, Maurice.
How they got away with it so long? Because he put fear into the followers' heart, because obviously, right, put fear into people is when you show them dead bodies or whatever, or when they have to do things, exactly terror. When they put terror on them. So they were scared. So they kept all that secrets for a long time until Khalid bust it.
His real name is Maurice Woodside, a.k.a. Maurice Simonette.
Right.
I've known him since 1977. We used to go to an after-school program at Miami Northwestern High School called PAVAC, which is Performing and Visual Arts. He and I were both actors back then, and I've known him since then. Once I joined the fraternity, he was a year ahead of me. I graduated in 78. He graduated in 77. He joined the Alpha Phi Omega fraternity. The next year I joined, he had a hand in whooping my butt and his brother's butt as part of the pledge program. So we are brothers in that way. And then I introduced him to the Yahweh sect through literature, and he became a member. So that's the same guy that's standing behind President Trump.
And Trump gives him the
murderer.
thumbs up and
He's a
says,
murderer.
he gives his thumbs up and he says, "Blacks for Trump. I love him."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. And by the way, too, I just had him on the show. He never mentioned you, man. I asked him if he knew you. I asked if he knew you. And he says, "Who's that? Lloyd? Is his name Lloyd?"
Yeah.
Okay, Lloyd. Yeah,
that's me.
Yeah. Okay, then he mentioned Lloyd. Yeah. Okay, I'll send you that show.
He knows me. My biological birth name was Lloyd Clark.
Lloyd Clark. Right.
He knows me.
Right, Lloyd Clark.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Okay, so now.
Yeah, he knows. He should have told you. He's the one. Lloyd Clark is the one responsible for me joining the Yahweh group.
I don't think he said that, but he was just yelling, man. He was just so angry. And we were doing the interview. He was sitting in a parked car in a parking lot. He starts fighting with somebody in a parking lot during the show.
He starts fighting with somebody in the parking lot.
Yeah, he starts. Some guy was backing up his car too close to him, and he starts yelling at the guy in the parking lot.
Oh, my.
But anyway, let's just move on. Let's move on. We don't have that much time, so keep going. This is great stuff, man.
So we're going to move up to my leaving the cult. How about that?
Well, okay. Were those the only murders, though?
There were reported about 15 of them. I can't even go through all of them. Basically, I'll just tell you what happened was Yahweh Ben Yahweh started this group called not the Circle of 10, but the Brotherhood. To be a member of the Brotherhood, you had to go out and either kill a white person and bring back as proof the head or the ear of that white person. So you had people that were going out. The most notorious among them is Neri Israel, who became the so-called star witness in the trial because he flipped and...
I want to laugh like we used to. I want to earn points on this umbrella. And I want the points I earn on the things I buy to fly me to my nans. What do you want?
Your American Express Gold Card rewards you for being you. Earn points on what you buy to spend on more of what you want. And enjoy 20,000 welcome bonus points when you spend £3,000 in your first 3 months of card membership. Jamex Gold. Representative 60.1% APR variable. New card member offer. Terms apply. 18 plus subject to approval.
Basically told what he did and told that he was doing that at the request of Yahweh Ben Yahweh. But there were 5, 13, 14, 15 other murders. People were bringing back ears, heads of people, and there were black people that were killed who just happened to get in the way of situations, and they had to go too. So, as for me, I never got my hands bloody. Would I have killed for Yahweh Ben Yahweh? Absolutely. I was as brainwashed as anybody there. I was just there to do whatever he wanted me to do. But he always would tell me and others, even Michael the Black Man, Michael the Black Man, and his brother and a couple others, he looked at us as his spiritual sons. We were all full-time workers. We were young kids, and he kind of kept us close to his hip. And he allowed other guys who he wasn't that close to go out and do those kind of crimes. We just were close to this. We were close to it. We were on the periphery of all that craziness. So in 1985, by 1985, I'm 5 years in now, and I'm pretty much knowing that it's a cult. Yahweh Ben Yahweh is not who he says he is. I've seen all the stuff he's been doing, and I know that my time to be in the cult is near to get out. But knowing the mindset of a person in the cult, it's kind of like being. I always tell people it's like being it's like a woman who's in a bad relationship with a man, and the man's cheating on her, the man's beating her, the man's treating her all kind of way, but for some reason she won't leave the man, and that's the same kind of mentality. You know all this is wrong, but I guess you could call it a form of Stockholm syndrome, where you begin to love the abuser, and I've loved the man even though I knew that he was abusive towards me, towards my family, towards a lot of people, and then he had a lot of people murdered and beat, including myself. So my getting out happened. We had this program where we had to go out every evening and collect donations and bring back a minimum of $10 donation, which is kind of easy to get, but it's actually hard in Miami because we had so saturated the ghettos of Miami that people just weren't giving us money. So if you didn't get it, you were led into a room called the Room of Understanding. Basically, it was the cafeteria that had been converted to this so-called chamber, torture chamber of sorts. So I failed to make my $10 quota, and of course I was sent straight until the room of understanding. So when you get in the room of understanding, they make you get on it's a carpeted floor, but it's like outdoor carpeting. It's just, there's no padding under it. When you get in the room, you kneel down on your knees, and while you're on your knees, you're there for you don't know how long you're going to be there. It could be an hour, it could be a day. But the pain of kneeling on your knees on that floor with concrete right up under that little thin carpet, the pain sets in within 5 minutes. Within 10 minutes, your knees are on fire. Within a half hour, you're sweating. You're basically at your breaking point of how much you can take. Now, mind you, while you're in there are guards that have these big sticks. If you fall over and try to give yourself some relief, you're going to get swatted over the head or back with a stick. So, and there
Maybe they had to kneel down on bottles.
are men and women in there, and children. And I'm in there, and I'm on my knees. A half hour go by, and I fully understand the pain. After I'm in there, an hour goes by, I'm numb now. People are crying, people are wailing. But for me, it was my epiphany. Like, I knew that once this was over, I was out of there. I couldn't just get up and leave because they would probably kill me if I tried to get up. But I knew that once this ordeal was over, I am out. And so 2 hours went by, and I'm actually, I don't know if I'm smiling on the outside, but I'm definitely smiling on the inside because the pain doesn't even matter because I know that I'm done when I'm done. And so after 2 hours, they say, you can go. So before you can get up, and you just can't get up off your knees after the end of 2 hours. You got to lay there for about 25 minutes and let the blood get back in your legs, and, all the pain comes to the end because you're trying to get up. So once I got up, I went and found my wife, and I told her, I said, look, I'm leaving. And now I have 2 kids there. I know she's not ready to go. She hasn't had any epiphany. She's not ready to go, and I know I can't take my kids. Besides that, I don't even know where I'm going, so I know I can't take the kids. I just tell her I love her. I got to go. I said, please give me an hour or a half hour head start before you tell somebody that I'm gone. And so I get up. By now, I'm staying. I don't take anything with me. All I have on is my robe, head wrap, whatever I got on. I walk. It's probably 10, 11 o'clock at night. I walk down because I'm not staying at the main building. I'm staying at another building because Yahweh Ben Yahweh, at this time, he took my wife from me. He separated me from my wife, so I'm sleeping somewhere else. So I walk like I'm going to that little dormitory place where I live, and I hit a side street, and I just start running, and I run. I run until I get to a main street, which is 27th Avenue, which is the main thoroughfare there. And the first bus that comes, I jump on. Mind you, I don't have a dime in my pocket. And for some reason, he waves me by. He doesn't even ask. He waves me by, and I go to the back of the bus. And as I was running, I tore off my turban. I took off my robe. I had a T-shirt under, and so now I just got on this white pants and a white T-shirt. And I get on the back of the bus, and I'm headed toward where I grew up, which is called Carroll City. And basically, I just put my head down and cried pretty much all the way to Carroll City. And I get off the bus probably around midnight, and I had nowhere to go. I went to my dad's house where I thought he lived. Of course, we hadn't talked in a couple of years. He had moved, so couldn't go there. I ended up staying in an abandoned car that night, and the next morning I was able to contact my brother. He came and got me, and he took me to my father's condominium, and he allowed me to stay there to get my life back on track. That's how I left the cult.
Wait, before we go too far, wasn't there something in the cult where a woman died and they're praying to bring her back from the dead?
I didn't hear that story.
Or that was after you left. It might have been after you left, because I think that's why Michael, the black man's brother, no longer talks to him. His brother left the cult, right?
Right. Well, if you're talking about his mother died before I left, and basically, now his mother was probably in her mid-50s, pushing 60. Her stomach had gotten really large. She was a slim woman, but her stomach got big, And Yahweh Ben Yahweh at first said that she was pregnant.
Right.
And so, but she wasn't pregnant. She was getting sick. I don't know why she died, but I'm thinking something along the lines of stomach cancer or something to that effect. But Michael the Black Man and his brother were on tour. They both sing too. They were on tour with Yahweh Ben Yahweh when they got the notice that she had passed away. I'm out of the cult by now.
Right.
But they're still in. And that's how they found out in Atlanta that their mother had died. And from what I understand, that was the only time that Michael the Black Man actually said something negative towards Yahweh Ben Yahweh, something like, that nigga could have told us that she was dying, or something to that effect. And after she died, Yahweh Ben Yahweh made family come get the body, and when the funeral came up, Michael the Black Man could not go and did not go, and neither did his brother. I went to his mother's funeral. So you ask him about that next time. No.
I don't think he's coming back on. But now what about, okay, you're at your father's house now. Do you go to the FBI? What happened? How does that come about?
So what happens is I began to just try to ingratiate myself back into society. First by getting a job. I started going back to a little junior college that I was a part of. And as a teenager and a young man, I was a dancer. I used to do like ballet, jazz, modern, and street dance. I was a dancer. So I joined the dance group at Miami-Dade, and they ran a piece on me out there at the college about Yahweh dancer returns to Miami-Dade. And that I know that got back to them, that they kind of saw that I was getting on my feet. So the word was that I was gay, that I had AIDS. I don't know why they came up with all this. I guess being a dancer, males tend to be gay, so I had to be gay. So that's kind of the logic. But I was doing my thing, and I actually started, we were racist. We were a racist group that did not believe that white people were the devils. Now, here comes one of Yahweh Ben Yahweh's spiritual sons, myself. Now I'm dating a white woman. And they see that because they see me in the community. They see me in the malls, and it gets back. I went to a Luther Vandross concert with this white woman, and she was fine.
Oh, well, you got to be gay then if you went Luther Vandross. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, I took her to see Luther Vandross. And that night at the show, lo and behold, there's 15 Yahwehs in all white at the show. And the reason why they were there is because the guy, his name was Gideon Israel. He's dead now. But Gideon Israel is the first cousin of Yahweh Ben Yahweh. Gideon Israel also was a former member of the group, the Cornelius Brothers and Sister Rose. They had two major hits out, Treat Her Like a Lady and Too Late to Turn Back Now in the 70s. I'm sure you heard them just on the radio. Big hits. This Gideon Israel was friends of Luther Vandross. So he took 15 of his people, all white, and they were down front, like front row. You saw this sea of white people, white robes down front. And they saw me and this white woman at it. So it got out clear that, Yehuda Israel is now dating what Yahweh Ben Yahweh called a she-devil, white woman. So I was getting major ugly looks in the streets about just my life and how I was living. And then it got to the point where I was still hearing about things that was going on. There was a bombing up in Delray Beach where the Yahweh group bombed this neighborhood, the wrong neighborhood at that, because they had a little skirmish with the locals. And I heard a baby was burned really bad.
Oh, no.
And then there was a situation in Opelika where they bought these apartment buildings, and as soon as they purchased them, they went in without notice and told everybody, get the hell out. Now, not 30 days, not 90 days. There are.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard about this one as well. They did great. They did hostile takeovers when it came to apartments and flats. And if the people didn't give them their way, they used to bomb it up. Yeah, I heard about that one as well. He goes into great detail on a lot of stuff because there's a lot of stuff that was missed out on the articles and stuff. He really recounts a lot.
Go. and they began to go into people's houses while they were in their houses and take their furniture and put it out on the street. Wow, can you imagine someone coming into your house and taking your stuff? And you don't even have notice that this is happening. So that happened, and then, of course, there were 2 murders behind in that same time period. The Yahwehs killed 2 of the tenants there because one of the guys, he was record on the local channel. They interviewed the guy. He says, I'm not going nowhere until I get an eviction notice. It's simple as that. And then his friend said, fuck them Yahwehs.
What's your
language?
Excuse me? You can't curse. You can't curse.
Oh.
I can't curse.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. That's okay.
Well, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, okay.
I know you can censor it out, don't you, right?
Yeah, we can work on it. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
But those were his words. So after that, and then with the threats that I was getting, I just got fed up with it. I knew that, and of course it had gotten back to me that my life, if they caught me in the wrong place.
Real talk, they know people in high places as well. He must have known a few people in high places. He's similar to like Jim Jones. You know, Jim Jones knew some politicians and he was around some people. He must have known some people in very high places, Ben Yahweh, because like before his name was Ben Yahweh, for him not to be taken off the streets or whatever, it took him ages to take him off the streets, it seems like. He was doing the most.
They were going to kill me. That's the word I got.
So, okay, so you went to the cops. You had no other case for something else that you got caught up in, or you went to the cops on your own?
No, I went on my own. It wasn't your standard, I'm a rat because I'm in trouble. No.
Okay.
I got up one morning, and I rode down to the local FBI headquarters in Miami, went in the office, went up to the second floor, was greeted by a lady at the door. There was a big old thick window. And she asked me what was in reference to. I said I want to talk to somebody about the Yahwehs. And the look on her face, it changed instantly. She said, I'll be right back. And when she came back, she brought a big, tall, 6'6" black guy in a suit came, and he met me. And I was a little nervous.
But the thing of the story is that how before he even opened his mouth and he said what he had to say to the person, when he said, I'm going to talk about Yahweh, obviously they must have been watching them for a very long time. They must have been trying to get case built for them as well. So he definitely knew some people in high and low places. So, he's just very interesting man because he looks very quiet and very soft spoken and very well together put man. Like, so he must have leverage somewhere.
Apprehensive because at that time I hadn't really talked to any white people in years. So I was kind of glad that it was a black man that I was about to talk to, and he ushered me back to his office. And there I began to lay out the whole Yahweh system, the things I knew about. I talked about the beheading. I talked about the things that I've been told. And they debriefed me for months. Back then they gave me a beeper, and they told me I was a confidential, they said a confidential source. And my name was El Lindo, the Indian. That was their code for me. And over periods of months,
were they paying you? Were they paying you?
They didn't pay me. Did I ever receive money from them? Yes. There came a point months down the road where when I met with him, he just gave me an envelope, said, "Here, this is just something to help you out or whatever." I never asked for money ever. But there were $500 payments, $300, probably all in all over those 4 or 5 years that I dealt with him, maybe $1,000 total, maybe in 5 years, maybe, because it wasn't about the money for me.
Right.
It was about this guy's a murderer and a pedophile and a bunch of other things that he's got to be stopped. And I just kind of became the one that was thrust into the unofficial spokesman for all the people. Now, after I left, there began to be a great falling away, an apostasy of people that were even his own biological brother, sister, brother-in-laws, nieces, nephews. They all left. His stepchildren, they all left, and we began to meet at certain houses just sporadically, and put the piece of the puzzle together because everybody has to the puzzle.
How was he a pedophile?
Oh, he was having sex with 12 and 13-year-old girls. Two that I know of for a fact. Nick, my dear from.
Oh my days! And you left your little one there with them people. Oh my gosh!
From Baltimore. Now, Nick, my dear, was a 13-year-old little young black child from Baltimore, and she's 13. But if you saw her, you would probably thought she was about 22. She was just filled out everywhere for a 13-year-old, and not only that, beautiful, just beautiful. I mean, I looked at her, I'm like, wow, she's stunning. Every guy that I knew was like, wow, she's stunning, just beautiful. And so there was a time, I'll tell you about this, back in 1981. I used to be Sister Judith. Sister Judith is the second in command of the Nation of Yahweh. Unofficially, Sister Judith is Yahweh Ben Yahweh's unofficial common law wife.
She was his concubine. Oops, can't see it. She was his concubine. Just say it. She was his concubine, his side woman, his side chick. Exactly. It does say a lot about him, don't it? He left his whole 2-year-old amongst this man and others. Wow. No, actually, the wife and him and the other wife left the 2-year-old around these people. Damn. So because this little girl looked really filled out, they thought that they would go test her out. Oh, wow. Crazy.
Were they ever married? I don't think so. But when I met Yahweh Ben Yahweh, I met her. They came together as a package deal. Now, Sister Judith had three kids, a daughter and 2 sons. So once I became a full-time worker for the nation, Yahweh Ben Yahweh made me become her personal, you can say bodyguard / whatever she needs done. I did it. When she went to the bank, I rode with her to make sure she got to the bank to put deposits. When she had to go to a mall to buy Yahweh Ben Yahweh a pair of ballet shoes, I was there. Wherever she went, you saw me. So on Saturday mornings, while Yahweh Ben Yahweh was teaching class, Sister Judith would be in her office. Of course, she can overhear everything because it's just right next to the main auditorium. She can hear the whole sermon loud. I would sit in her office at her door while people were coming in there to give her money, and I just kind of sat there. That was my post. One Saturday, Yahweh Ben Yahweh began to teach a class on someone. And at the beginning, I didn't know who the someone was, but then I saw Sister Judith start crying, literally bawling, and I knew that Yahweh Ben Yahweh was talking about her. But what he was saying was that he can put his penis anywhere he chooses to put it because he's God. Don't question me about who God chooses to give his seed to. That's the language he was using. But the person in question was this 13-year-old girl named Nick Madia. I know because I lived there. The walls have ears and eyes. I knew who he was talking about. And then I'm watching Sister Judith bawling, and I'm thinking, wow, this is crazy. So that's just one example. Now, Sister Judith had a daughter. She finally left in 1986, and she told her mother, I'm leaving because I'm tired of your man, meaning Yahweh Ben Yahweh, having sex with me. But she didn't use that word. She used the F word.
Right.
Okay?
So now, Michael the Black Man has to be aware of this then, right? If you were.
Of course.
Okay.
100,000%. But he's going to tote the party line. He's never once the trial, of course, down the road, Yahweh Ben Yahweh was arrested. Michael, the black man, and 14 others were arrested with him.
Right.
So they all are, they riding for Yahweh Ben Yahweh. So everything that I'm saying to you in this interview is a damnable lie according to him. But there are a lot of people that would back up everything I'm saying that, in fact, it happened. So going back up to 86, I walked into the FBI office. I spilled my guts. I told them everything I knew, and everything you've heard and more.
Khalil was fed up. He had enough. He's like, bro, I'm done. And he just went and spilled his guts, told them everything, didn't hold back on nothing. But the man was disgusting. He went after a 13-year-old. That's nasty, man. That's a child. You don't do that.
More stuff that you haven't heard. And so for I would say the first year they debriefed me. Of course, in my simplistic mind, I'm thinking as soon as I say this, they're going to go down and arrest him. But it didn't happen the first year. It didn't happen the second year. It didn't happen the third. I think about 4 years into it that Yahweh Ben Yahweh was finally arrested. But by then there were enough people that had come forward that were telling their stories. They were co-signing some of the things that I had said and saying things that I didn't know about. I didn't know it all. But I was the first one. I was the first one to come forward for the FBI and get the ball rolling. I understand they had someone on the inside, but that person was a day late and a dollar short. They came to, you had to be there in the beginning to really have the intel on what was going on. So whoever they brought in, they couldn't get close enough to the inner circle. I was in the inner circle, so I was the first one to come forward. Of course, they asked me, could I lead them to other people? I was able to give up, have Michael, the black man's brother. We brought him in. He was able to tell about stuff that he knew. He knew a lot about the beheading. He was actually one of the guys that was in that car when they took him out to the Everglades and beheaded him. So he was firsthand knowledge of that. And I just began to, they would show me pictures, and I would begin to say who this person is, who that person is, and just began to build a puzzle. And, of course, others were brought in. They ended up talking to Yahweh Ben Yahweh's direct biological sister and the kids and the in-laws. So it wasn't just people like myself who were, were you getting paid or were you snitching because you were in trouble? None of those things. It was more of people who had gotten fed up and people knew this man was destructive to the city of Miami. So so by the time they arrested him in
He's destructive to the people. He created something that could have been so great. He was like, if he did do everything properly, if he wasn't doing money laundering and the extras, right, he could have had buildings. He had people listen to him, even though he full gazy some books, but he seemed to have the way with people and getting people to do what he wanted them to do. He's just, boy, he wasn't for the people.
1991, November, December of 91, and they had a mass trial. There were slated to be like 160 witnesses, and I was the first of the Yahweh members to testify, and basically brought me in to kind of set up the scenery, like to let the jury know what the teachings were about, what they believed, and of course I told them the things that I knew or had heard or stuff like that. And I was on trial for probably 4 or 5 days. They had me straight. It was grueling. Your mass trial, you had 15 lawyers that had a chance to take shots at you. Now, by 1991, I was the unofficial spokesman for all the ex-members. So I had been on one national TV show in '88. I was on a CBS show called West 57th Street. And then I had given a huge expose in 1991 to the Miami Herald, 4 pages, pictures of me, pictures of my white girlfriend, all this stuff in the paper. I had been in Esquire magazine. I had been in a lot of different media publications as the guy that was, revealing what was going on. So I had a mark on my back. I was that dude. They were looking to get me. Part of why I did it, as far as the media, because I knew that they'd be crazy to try to kill me, knowing that I'm the one that's out there like that. Because there were others who they did kill who weren't in the media. But I figured, if you're going to get me, I'm going down swinging. I'm going down telling everything I know. And that's just was my mentality. So the trial, Yahweh Ben Yahweh's lawyer was actually Al C. Hastings, who was a federal judge. He was in scandal himself some years ago for maybe bribery or something. I don't know the details of it. But he was his lawyer. And so they took turns trying to, tear apart my story, because I had given so many interviews that they had a lot of stuff to work with. And I think I fared well, though. They caught me in some contradictions, things I might have said or misspoken on or whatever. But all in all, I think I did a good job going up against 15 lawyers. And so after that, the FBI says, you got to get out of Miami. Not next week. You got to go. So right after my last day on trial, they put me in a hotel in Miami, a really nice hotel. Within a day or two, they flew me. They asked me, where do you want to go? I said, well, I have a brother in San Diego, and maybe I can go out there. And so they flew me out there. They had asked me previously about going into the Federal Witness Security Program, which is the correct name of it. But I rejected it because the information that I had basically was, you're going to go somewhere to Montana somewhere. You can't never see your kids no more. That's it. Anyone you ever knew, family, friends, they're dead. You got to start all over. And I just wasn't having it.
Let me ask you this, because we only got about 20 minutes left. Do you see your ex-wife and kids? Are you still in touch with them?
My kids, yeah. I see my ex-wife every now and then. Only 20 minutes left? I thought we were going 3 hours. Okay.
No, I want to have you come back. I want to do 2 hours today. We'll have you come back like next week, man. We'll do a little bit more time.
Okay.
This is great stuff. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll maybe get to that other hip-hop stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll come back with the whole show on that. Yeah.
Okay. So I didn't go into the witness protection program. I just flew out to San Diego and tried to start my life all over again. And my girlfriend, we actually got married, and this is the white woman I was telling you about. She became a nurse. I went on back to school, got a 2-year degree in English in college, San Diego Mesa College, became a laboratory technician, that kind of thing. But then in 1994, the government came back at me and said that they're going to do a state trial to try to get Yahweh Ben Yahweh for murder. Well, he was convicted in 1992 under a RICO statute, and he got 20 years. He ended up doing 11 years of that 20. But while he was in custody, they were going to take him up on trial for murder. And so in 1994, whoever the judge was ruled that my lawyer had to give my whereabouts to them.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and so the government told me, now you have to go into the witness protection program because our intelligence says that they're going to kill you before you get on the stand. That's why they want your information. They're going to kill you. So in April of 1994, I said, let's do it. Now, one thing I can say is that by then, Michael the black man's brother, who is my best friend, had gone into the witness protection program a year or two before that. And even though he had gone in, we still maintained contact. So I knew the whole game now. I knew what to expect through him. He told me how much money they're going to give me. He said, how they going to put you up, how they going to change your ID. He gave it to me, so I was more confident. Plus, I had a meeting with the witness protection program is actually headed by the Marshal Service, the United States Marshal, not the FBI. So basically what they do, they bring you in, they give you an IQ test, intelligence test to see if you're not crazy, and they make sure that you're stable mentally because you're under their care now. So once they get you, they don't tell you. Well, they give you a map of the 50 states, and they say check off every place you've ever been or where you have family or friends. And for me, that's huge. So that narrowed it down to a lot. I narrowed it down. So all those places that I checked, that's where I will not be going. And you don't get to choose where you go. You have to wait on them.
You check off every state but Hawaii, right?
Yeah, I've never been to Hawaii.
That's what the smart guy would do.
I said, I don't know if I want to live in Hawaii anyway. Not like now. So a day came in 1994 where they said, be ready tomorrow. And that's all that I was told. And the next day, a van pulled up. I had a big old apartment full of furniture. They said, don't take nothing. Leave it as it is. We will have people come move that for you. All you take is a suitcase and have all your credentials. We need them. In other words, your license, credit cards, anything that has a bank number, an address that connects you to you, we need it. So we had to get all the car registrations, all that stuff. Birth certificates, you name it. Passports, you name it. So they came and got us in San Diego, and first they just took us and put us in a really 5-star hotel downtown for like 3 weeks. We were just in the hotel, and every Monday or so they were giving us like $500, which we didn't eat that $500. I mean, we just didn't eat it. So, but it was for whatever. So for 3 weeks we just stayed in the hotel, me and my wife, and we just waited. And then one morning they said, be ready. And they came and got us, and they took us to the airport. They didn't say, where you going? They just took us to the airport. We got on the plane, and they flew us to Seattle. We didn't know we were going to Seattle until we got to the gate. And they said, when you get off the plane, there'll be some people to meet you again. So we got off the plane in Seattle, and sure enough, there were 2 suits waiting on us. Took us to another terminal. They flew us to Portland. And then we got off in Portland. We were met by some more suits, and they took us out of the airport and took us to a hotel, and they said, you will be here until we're ready to move you. Here's some money. Enjoy Portland. That's basically what it was. So we stayed there probably almost a month. And then the day came where they said, be ready tomorrow where you're moving. And they picked us up, took us to the airport, and they flew us to Reagan National Airport. And when we got off the airplane, we were met by 2 people in suits and taken out of the airport, put into a van with no windows, in the back of the van, no windows. And there was a partition between us and the driver, so we didn't know who was driving, and no windows in the back. It was comfortable, but no windows. And they drove us for about 2 hours. So I don't know if I was in Virginia, D.C., or Maryland, in the tri-state area. We just drove. And then when the door finally opened up, we were underground at what came to be known as the Federal Witness Security Program headquarters in a parking lot. So then I just happened to have my gun in my suitcase. And they asked me, do you have any weapons on? I said, yeah, well, I have my 9mm in my suitcase. So, of course, they confiscated that immediately. And they searched us, and they took us into a building. Imagine a big building that has apartments within the building. So they put us in this building, and then they opened this door. We went in, and it was an apartment with all the furnishings of home. I mean, TV, everything you need. And the refrigerator was full of food, steaks, whatever you want. It's just packed up, everything. And, everything, a full apartment.
Now, what about the apartments next door? Did you see the other people in the program?
No, they don't. No.
Okay.
No. When they bring you in, they make sure all the hallways are clear. When you come in there, you don't hear nothing. You don't see nothing. All you walk down a pretty kind of a dimly lit hallway. They open the door and they say, this is where you're going to stay. And when they close the door, you're locked in. Ain't no walking back out the front door.
Okay.
Now, there's a patio area you can go out on, but you can't see nothing because they have probably a 30-foot wall, concrete, straight up. So all you get is sunshine and you can see clouds. You can't scale the wall. And so
it's like jail.
Yeah, it's jail. You can't go out. You're in there. And so they had us in there probably for about 4 or 5 days. And while we were there, that's where they actually took all of our identification, driver's license, Social Security, passport, birth certificates, anything, vehicle registration, gun registration, anything that had a name on it, numbers attaching us to it, they took it from us then. So for that period of time, now we're basically non-people, non-entities. We have no name. That they're erasing us basically. They call it the erasure. They're erasing us. So we were there about 4 or 5 days, and all there's to do is eat and basically have sex, eat, and look out the window, and that's it, and watch TV. So after that, the day came where they said, "Be ready tomorrow. You're leaving." So we left. They took us back to Reagan National, and they flew us to, of all places, Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so I had a couple thoughts. One thought was, well, if they do it like they don't do it before, they probably going to pick us up and move us from Omaha and move us somewhere else. But they didn't do that. They pulled me out. They pulled us right out of the airport. And I'm thinking, ain't no black people in Omaha. And then I remembered Malcolm X was born and raised in Omaha. So there has to be black people. It's not that I don't hate white people, but I don't want to be around all white people and I'm the only black person. You understand?
Hey.
I mean, that's just what it is. So, and then I got this white wife. Here's this interracial couple around all white people. That wouldn't go too well. But fortunately, Omaha is a pretty mixed city. There's blacks, whites, and others. It wasn't we didn't stand out.
But now, what do you do now? Because they give you a Social Security number, but you got no credit. It's a brand new issued Social Security number. But how do you get a job and stuff?
Well, first of all, when you get there, we were in a residence inn. You don't have any. For the first month and a half, we had no ID, zero, had nothing. We didn't exist. That's the whole erasure part of it. We didn't exist.
Right.
But then the day came where they took us to the DMV, and the guy just says, "Go up to window 4 or whatever," and they already knew we were coming, and I took a picture. I didn't take no test. Took a picture. Got an ID. They took us to the key bank. Go talk to Mr. So and so, and they said it was a bank account. They took us down to the University of Nebraska because I was still in school.
Wait, so when you went to the DMV, you didn't have to wait online?
No.
Well, it's worth it then, right?
Absolutely.
Boy,
they took me to the Passport Bureau,
right.
Gave me the money for the passport, go up to window so and so, and took care of it. In 2 days, he brought that back to me, my passport, in 2 days.
Right.
Same thing with my school records, my transcripts from the 2-year college to the University of Nebraska. We went to the dean of something or other, went in the back room. He just clicked on his computer. It's done. You can start school Monday. And so all of my Lloyd Clark transcripts going into my junior year were transferred to, at the time I was Khalil Ashanti, not Amani. That's another story why I had to change my last name because me and my wife broke up. So anyway, so as far as for the first, until you get those credentials, you can't get a job. So now that I got my credentials, now it's going to be kind of difficult. Even like my wife, she was a registered nurse in the state of California. They flipped that, and now she had a registered nurse in the state of Nebraska. They bought a beautiful certificate, signed, sealed, everything, so she was able to go to work. As far as references, that was the hard part because you can't use any past work history as a reference. So that's tricky. That's tricky, and it's now you have to do a little manipulation, a little bit of lying, a little bit of whatever, finessing. And I can't really tell you how that works. We just had to do what we had to do. You understand?
Sure.
That's just what it is. But we both were able to get jobs at a hospital right around the corner from us. She as a nurse and me as a phlebotomist. I used to draw blood. And so that went on. But while we were in the witness protection program, we were getting like about $2,400 a month from the government. Cash money, first of every month. And that continued on even after we got a job for about a year. They told us the government, basically the guy who was handling us, he said, the government is slow. It's going to take them 6 months to a year to now stop it once you get a job. But he said that they would continue to fund us, a reasonable amount of time, even after we had full-time jobs. So we were really doing financially. We were really doing well between her money, my money, and the government's money. We were doing well, and Omaha was kind of cheap too.
Yeah.
We had like a 5-bedroom house with $600. So,
No, okay.
So that was.
We're running out of time now. So now, how come you're not in the witness protection program now? You're not afraid now?
No, I'm not afraid now. I was only in the witness protection program for about 2 years, in 1994 to 1996. In 1996, I went back to Miami, which I wasn't supposed to. That was considered a danger area. I went back there to see my kids. Me and my wife, we were going through our situation with the children. She decided to drop a dime, rat on me, snitch on me, make a phone call to the government and say he was down here in Miami. And so I got the call from my handler saying, we got a call that you were in a danger zone. You know, that's going to disqualify you from the witness protection program, if I admitted to it, of course.
Right.
And I admitted to it because actually at the time, by then, I was kind of ready to go. Not that the government was in my business like every day. I only saw the handler.
Okay, we don't need to hear all the extra stuff. Okay, so I'm going to show you. He wrote a book called, what's it called? Brother Love, Murder, Money, and a Messiah. This is Khalil Amani. Hold on, let me show you him. Oh, that's not. Where is it? Okay. Oops. Oh, it's not showing it. This is Khalil Amani. And remember I was telling you about that wedding that I wanted to show you. I hope I haven't lost it. Oh, yeah, I have. Let me find that wedding. Cause I saw that wedding, I was like, wow. All right, let me bring it back to the beginning. Right, I think this wedding is him, but I'm not sure it's him. But anyway, there's a wedding video that they have of one of the followers. Let me see where it is, the last one. Okay. So marriage supper is called.
Ben Yahweh. Your Royal, Imperial, Queen El Naomi Ben Yahweh. overtake Queen El, Yahweh.
Follow Yahweh's law, the raw law, that symptom will never come upon us. And as we know, there was no such thing as death. There was no such thing as illness. There was no such thing as a disease in the Garden of Eden. That sickness, illness, all of them come into the fall of man. The fall of man came when God allowed, not really allowed, He permitted them to eat meat. And then at that point, when they took all that permission, because they were, the people of the world were hard-headed people. But God is a merciful God. He said, well, I want to, answer your request, but I want you to live forever. But since you don't want to abide by me forever in full, I will allow you to eat meat. But if you eat meat, you will live. I can allow you to live, but you're not going to.
Yahweh Ben Yahweh, and the raw consummation of the royal Yahweh head. I'd like to call forth King El Zebulon Ben Yahweh. Queen El Mahasabel Ben Yahweh. Queen El Naomi Ben Yahweh. Queen El Tisbi Yahweh. Welcome. We'll begin our vows with King El Zebulon Ben Yahweh.
Yahweh Ben Yahweh. I, King Khalil Ben Yahweh.
Okay, we ain't gonna watch the whole of that because it is a rather long video. But they look very spectacular. They remind it's like Nubian Moroccan dress. That's how it looks like. But this guy definitely did have a god complex big time. But when he passed away, hold on, I'm gonna find there's an article of when he passed, because he passed about when he was 70 something, I think it was 79 or something like that. The followers had a great loss. The leader of the Yahweh tied to the murders of 14 people have died, but the black supremacist group he started is showing strong signs of new life. So Pembroke Pines, Florida, the funeral of Yahweh was a black and white affair. Nearly 500 white clad members of the Nation of Yahweh, a notorious black supremacist group, religious sect that, under Yahweh's guidance, embraced violence, racial separatism, gathered in the parking of the Florian Ballroom, an upscale event centered here. It was May 13th, 6 days after Yahweh died of prostate cancer. Just prior to his ascension, Yahweh was released from parole after serving 11 years of an 18-year sentence on federal conspiracy charges related to 40 murders committed in Miami in 1980s. Black men in white robes and white suits pulled into the parking lot driving shiny white Lincoln and Lexus luxury cars. They boasted a abundant gold and diamond jewelry, seemed to be speaking into the air as they talked business over Bluetooth ear devices. Their women were wrapped in white dresses and crowned with what they called the Montes and white turbans. White draped toddlers repeatedly acclaimed Praise Yahweh. At the height of its power in the late 1980s, the Miami-based Nation of Yahweh had satellite temples around the country, a laxative business of empire, apartment complexes, hotel stores, fleets of Greyhound buses, Rolls Royce cars, all painted stalk white. Yahweh himself once estimated the sets holding at 100 million, and while the nation's wealth strength dwindled following the imprisonment of its founder, it was apparent from the conspiracy of affluent turnout at the funeral that the current nation members are neither penniless nor scarce. Indeed, in recent years, the nation has put on several lavish uh, conferences in Canada. It has expanded anew in both Canada and Texas, following are preparing regularly in South Florida too, and it has grown increasingly apocalyptic in tone. It it predicts the end of the white dominion, a development that has observers worried given the nation's violent past. The mood inside the ballroom this May was joyful. The corpse of Yahweh Ben Yahweh, translation God, Son of God, lay out in the open as his disciples stood elbow to elbow. The occasion marked the first legal contact between Yahweh and his followers in some 15 years, since the term of his parole strictly prohibited him from reconnecting with his congregation in any way. But anger was also in the air. Funeral orators unleashed virtual polemics against an unspecified enemy. This year marks the year of your doom, said one of them. Yahweh Ben Yahweh told you over 16 years ago, Satan, that if you keep on messing with him, that he will lie down. Praise Yahweh, the assembly members shouted in unison and sustained applause. Nation of Yahweh members believed that the death of Yahweh Ben Yahweh was foretold in the Holy Scriptures and is a sign that the time is upon the earth when the godly remnants of the black race will displace the accused white race, along with blacks infected with white blood, and rule the earth. As one funeral speaker put it, the wicked powers proceeders sitting in the high places knew that the power of Yahweh and Ben Yahweh is the beginning of the end of the 6,000-year rule of wicked dominion. Oh, yeah, see, Nation of Islam did theology while I was there. Let me see if I can read through this. Hebrew Israelite Christian identity. It just goes on about his affiliations with certain peoples. Okay. I think that is their paper. No, it's not their paper. Okay. So that is That, I think I've covered everything. It would appear, even beyond the grave, that the cult leaders still hold power over some of the members. Yeah, he does. He does. He really does. Even till now, 2022, he does. He holds a great power. So, this guy was very, I don't know, what do they call it? Psychopath. I did hear about the dismembering of the parts because I sort of I was doing little things while it was on. The dismembering of parts, and they took a souvenirs as well. That's kind of crazy. That kind of crazy. I'm sure there are ones like this out here. I'm sure there are people like him outside right now as we're speaking. There must be plenty people like him. It's been quite interesting because I didn't know that much about. I've just seen little depictions of him. I've never really looked into him all that deeply, and I feel that I've learned a lot about him and his members. I mean, I didn't even know that Khalil did a whole interview. Maybe the other guy did another interview, but it's good because at least I didn't have to do two videos. It is a very interesting story as well. How he started out with Nation, then he turned himself into Yahweh Ben Yahweh. I mean, they talk at his funeral as well, and the Hebrew Israelites. So everybody's linked together. They're all connected together, people. So if you're thinking in Nation and you're not dealing with the people who you feel is not a part of your set, they are part of it. It's just done in different ways. He dressed up in a turban and seemed like Indian clothes. That's what it looked like. That's how they dressed. I've never seen them. I've never seen them in real life, but I should suspect that they were very interesting people because the Hebrew Israelites are very interesting. I think the Hebrew Israelites are interesting the way they dress. I always wondered how did they get the idea of their dress because it's very Babylonian. The beards, the hair, the way they have certain stuff. How did he come to that idea of making them dress like that with the headscarf on their head? But he wasn't the only one. I think was like that. There's Father Divine, which Trips have on her channel. You can go see about Father Divine. That one's interesting too because I didn't even know about Father Divine. And even when I watched Jim Jones, I didn't realize that was Father Divine that Jim Jones spoke to. They are a very interesting group, the Yahweh Ben Yahweh. So I can see, but you can see from the video that all the people was really young. You can tell that they're young. They're not big people. There was no big people in that video. But it is a very interesting set. I mean, maybe I should look in a bit. I want to look in more about the Mormons, but I think Yahweh is quite interesting as well. I think quite a few of these cults are very interesting. Right, that they go to great lengths that how right they have to start killing people just to get their way. Yeah, this was a very interesting one. I actually quite like the story. I mean, Khalid really tells the story very well. He tells it very, very to detail. He gives great detail. You can even imagine what's going on as he's speaking it. Right, his book must be good, must be very detailed. Okay, so yeah, so please look at the other videos where I put up about the fake Buddha, the fake Jesus. Who else was there? Oh yeah, please keep going back and back to the previous ones. I see people talking on previous videos as well, looking at previous videos, and they're also looking at the cultish one. I'm trying to make a whole playlist on the cults one, because that's just a potential playlist right there. There is more cults to cover. I think the next one will be the Nuwapians, I think, but I'm just gonna cover overview because, and I'm gonna add who's covering him, Trips. I'm gonna link it to Trips because Trips talk about their Freemasonry bit when they spin around. I mean, she does it in jest, but she does have a section where she's that she took serious about it as well. She does an interview with somebody as well. So I think Nuwapians will be the next one, I think. Because even Nuwapians are interesting. They're the different doctrines that they do is just crazy. How the children were separated from the parents. And do you know what, right? In most of the stories, when they talk about Yahweh Ben Yahweh, I don't remember them talking about the pedophilia side of it. Yes, the New Orleans is interesting as well from the black side of the cult side. They're very interesting. This guy, New Orleans, is interesting. The Moorish Temple, they don't see the Moorish Temple as a cult because I looked it up. They don't put them as a cult. I don't know why. They don't look at them as a cult. So I think they are more of a religion because they're Muslim, maybe Muslim links. Nuwapians are interesting. They're very interesting. I used to know some Nuwapians, and I used to know Hebrew Israelites back in the day before too. So, yeah, it's interesting what they term as black cults, even though they're kind of all the same, Nation of Islam included. Um, yeah, but yeah, Nuwapian might probably be the one I'll be looking at because Malachi did a whole lot. I think that little spit what I covered on him wasn't enough. I feel I need to pad it out a little more. I'm gonna find the old video what I did of him. I think I just did one. No. I did the transcript. What Trips was talking about on Remy's channel when it went to great detail. So yeah, the Nuwapians are interesting. The Temple of Hip Hop is at the Nuwapians. They're very interesting. Nuwapians is interesting because Malachi was a whole musician and then some. He had talent. I mean, the idea that he had was really big and grand and lush, like the pyramids and everything else. Like he could have made a whole Black Wall Street, you can say, just in that small village part, but due to his whatever was going on with him, because I know he has some issues too. Most of these guys have issues, that's why yeah, they are all linked together. They're all linked in some way. African Bambaataa is linked with them as well, because around about I think the 80s time, I think before the 80s there was stuff going on. There was stuff going on before the 80s. I didn't know about these groups. Like I said, I was brought up in a strict Christian home. My peoples weren't into these things. I just came across the Nation of Islam by accident myself. So yeah, but yeah, I think the next one will be New Arpians, and I think I'm gonna link Trips's. I'm gonna put Trips's link underneath it because she does one on the Freemasonry where they're spinning around, and I think the guy I think she did an interview with somebody, but I'm gonna ask Trips if I can use her one, or if not, I will go get it directly myself if it comes down to it. I'll just see what I get first because I like to get the info first a little bit, and if I need any help from of the other creators, I'll just go and ask them. So yeah, they're all linked together. They're all linked. That's for sure. So please leave comment underneath of all the details. Please take time, put on your headphones when you're listening to this information. All the ones that is like podcast ones, put your headphones on because I'm taking the information. The images and videos will always get flashed up last because that's when you see how they talk, how they walk, how they walk, especially when the ex-members talk out. When you hear them, when you hear it from the inside, you get more of an idea of how it is as well. Because I would say, if I was young again, I'll probably go to Yahweh Ben Yahweh because just by the way they look, the Muslim also spin around. Yeah, the Sufis. The Sufi spins. KRS formed the temple of hip hop based on. Oh yeah. Zulu Nation. Yeah. Yes. Yes, I'm gonna take. Yeah, I know about KRS-One and his links to the Zulu Nation as well. He has big links with Zulu Nation. He has. That's why when African Bambaataa got when people asked him about African Bambaataa, is he co-signed and he was saying that he didn't disagree with it or something, when he probably might not have been around him when things was going on, but he must have known something, surely, because I did do an African Bambaataa one. When you go to the search box of my channel, I did do a commentary over that one because that was just crazy. Me and Miss Wise went in on that one because he was there and he just turned a blind eye to everything. Hassan Campbell got famous off of it. Savage. Well, Remy said that now. Remy said that now he's got a mental health problem now. You know, so these men have been running rampant. But the thing is that us as a community, we don't really do nothing. We have, unless somehow like how that man went to the police or whatever. That's the only way they get taken down. When the victim speaks out, the ex victims. Most of my research cover this. Yeah. Because I researched African Bambaataa one time, and he's got a heck of a lot of shit going on with him. A heck of a lot. The Zulu Nation itself, I don't know. I haven't really taken a look at the Zulu Nation itself, but the Zulu Nation, they knew what was going on, and they didn't step into afterwards to when the boys, I think when the boys said something cool, I can't remember how it went again because it's been a long time. Because I remember looking at Layla Wells's, listen to her podcast on that, and the Zulu Nation, all they did was write a letter and kind of apologize to them. What can an apology do if someone's taken away your manhood? That's not good. That means that how you agree with what was done. That's the same as like how this one went with a 13-year-old. So basically, right, they're co-signing. Then the next thing they do is swing it to polygamy and all sorts of shit. And Hassan Campbell, I do believe Hassan Campbell was Bambaata's lover as well. I don't say that ain't true, because it's just too obvious, you know. And I think that's one of the things that the woke community needs to deal with. The shits they do. They need to have a proper flush out and all that. High level. But Bambaataa supports the campaign to free the. Yeah, of course he would. Of course he would. Because he co-signs to all that crazy. He co-signs to all of that stuff. He's part of it. He's part of it. He's literally part of it. They're all alike. There's no difference. Because either they come involved with each other one way or the other through events. Because you know, and I know, if you've been around the conscious community, right, everywhere you go, right, you'll see the same people everywhere you go. It doesn't matter how big the Americas is. I'm sure people bang into each other at events and seminars and all this stuff. Like I said earlier, they're all connected. There's no difference. They're all the same. The only difference is how they dress and how they look and how they talk and certain languages, what they use, or the greetings, what they change up. You know, they're all the same. They're all the same. I want to see if I put a wrench on the room. I can't see him now. Where is he? Where's Lavon? Oh, yeah, I did give him a wrench. Yeah, now More's right. I think the Nawapians, funny people might come into the Nawapian one. So we have to be mindful of people coming into the lives as well. I am strict over here. I don't like the distractions and stuff, but yeah, Nawapian would be the next one. I think because I'm sure there is ex-members who's been talking out and saying a lot. It's just that there's certain people that is linked to certain people, and they're not. Certain things are not being brought to the surface now. That's hence why Babylon Boy is still going right now. Okay, so I just feel that how, like, I know they said even on the YouTube it's a cultishness of followers and blah 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 blah, but um, but oh, I can't even think of the word that I'm gonna say now. I just think that how there's just a lot going on, and then we just don't do nothing or whatever. We don't do nothing really. I mean, this man, luckily, right, he could have lost his life even talking out against this man. But Yahweh Ben Yahweh finished. I mean, it's finished. Yahweh Ben Yahweh died before. Probably if he was alive as well, he probably would have got him. So yeah. So basically, all the cult videos, right? If people can up the like, so they can get circulated, get put into the algorithm or whatever has got to be done now, because so they can go to the right places, because there's too many similarities in all of these people, the way they behave, the head wraps now. Babylon Boy have the ladies wearing wraps and headscarves. Now I just seen an example of that on one of the videos with this guy. So I can see where some of the influences he's got some of his stuff from, or what he's been watching. So I don't really want to be waffling on though, but yeah, the next one, just make sure that you put on the notification bell on for the next one. I'll try my best with that one, because I know a few people's covered it and they covered it really well. The New Warpians, they covered on the New Warpians. It's been covered so well. The court papers, everything. But I don't know whether I will show the court papers again. The information on them is very big. I know that it's very vast, because he did loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of different doctrines in one set. But I heard some truths on one of the things that I got, because he's saying he was Libyan or something, which he wasn't. He told a whole heap of lies. Yeah, him, Chuck Morgan. Yes, he told a whole heap of lies. Dr. York, a whole heap of lies. He really had people wrapped around his finger. But the thing is that he was such a showman. That's the thing. When you really check out Dr. York, you can see what a showman he was. The clothes, the hats, the pyramids, I don't even know. Even though the pyramids was made out of plywood, but they look so good, you know. Like, anybody who sees that would want to pack their bags and go and live and be in a place like that. I would not say to a person, I wouldn't go. It did look really good, but on the surface it was pretty, and in the inside it was dirty, nasty, filthiness going on all over in that place. I mean, look at this guy, Yahweh Ben Yahweh. They was in a whole flipping warehouse, living in a warehouse. They weren't even in houses or apartments. They was in a whole warehouse. So, I mean, I know I can go into two parts on them, but I don't want to do no two parts on them, because especially when you hear certain things, even you get vexed listening to it. And I'm kind of glad I'm not exactly part of the woke community. I'm not, but I did learn a lot from them. You learn a lot from them. You do learn a lot from them. It does actually make you look at yourself quite differently. Even though sometimes, like, you fall out of grace and then you go back or whatever. I've only been back once or a couple times, but the woke community, the only thing good about them is when they get together, they know how to be around each other. Pardon me. Hold on. Sorry about that. They know how to be around each other, and they know how to, and especially when it comes to selling their books and their bits and their this and their that and their music. Because I used to buy a whole heap of conscious music from the local ones. Um, you know, they market it very well. It's very appealing to a person. Anyone who's searching, it's appealing. Rasta is appealing to the eye, the locks, the liberty. Some people it's the smokes on that level. But like I said, even with the Yahweh crew, you see how spectacular they dress. They must come into a room and the whole room must light up from the time they step into a space. They dress so spectacular. The white is glistening. They look like it looks something like a, I don't even know. I can't think of nothing that glistens like that. I can't say heavenly because like some people don't believe in the Bible, so I ain't gonna even say that. But it just looks so graceful, like royalty. Like just that little small video. When I saw that video, that wedding, I was like, wow. I mean, him talking, right? You don't really see the audience really, but when you see that wedding video, you can imagine how glisten and shiny they must look. Plus the Plus, it looks like they're on some kind of diet. Their skin is clean. They're young. They're glistening. But it's just the stupidness what was going on in the background. It's just the like murdering people and all sorts of craziness, and then getting away with it. If that informant didn't tell on him, he probably would still be doing it all now, or his children be doing it all now. So yeah, boy, so that was a whole mouthful. But yeah, put the reminder bell on. Hold on, I'm gonna do that diva one. Where's the? Actually, I won't even do it actually, in case she pulls up to my thing. Please share the content, please. Let's spread around. And what's the next one? Oh yeah, the God complex. Oh yeah, I forgot to talk about that one. The God complex. Please hit the like and share and subscribe as well. Okay? Right, the God complex. Now, my understanding of this God complex is that how these guys like they start small, and then they see people worshiping them and calling them Messiah, the God, and all this stuff, and they think in their mind that they're superior above all, like they're against reproach. They have no, they're just above everybody. They're above everybody, head and foot, right? So even though I've done a video on it, but that's what I get when I hear the God complex. When I hear that the God complex, a complex that he's immortal. He will never die. He's the it. He's the end. He's the I am. The extras like that other guy in the video before. They had big heads. So before I go into waffling mode, okay, I am gonna come off. But that's my intake on it, and it might not be on point, but that's what I think about it. As although I looked it up a couple times, but yeah. So thank you for passing through, people. Oh yeah, I think I've done. Let me do the names before I do the outro, because I have an outro. Da, 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 da. Okay, Jaded Emperor, Christine, Big Philly G, uh, Earl, that Lawrence, Big O, Real talk. Oh, where's Lavon? Lavon, where are you? No skipping. Oh yeah. So oh yeah, go check out our Amazon as well. She's a very good channel. And Real Talk, check her out too. If you haven't checked her out already. Trips, Treehouse, check her out too. If you haven't checked her out already. Ramel Ma'at, check him out too. Lavon, check him out too. Where am I looking? Oh yeah, Trips. Yeah, the cats. See, I finished on time. The cat's crying now. Well, we got helicopters flying low over here. Moonfay. All right. Moonfay. Where is she? There's Moonfay. Hmm. Oh yeah, Lavon. There he is. Go to Lavon. Lavon does some motivational speech, not speeches. Does motivational words for you to for your day or your afternoon. Take a look at Lavon says, and I think I've done everybody. Yeah, I think I got everybody. Okay, so let me hit the. Oh yes, I made an outro. I was brave. I did one.